Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by Matthew Miller.
Hey, Ben.
And JV Gwaltney.
Hey.
For the 300th time in a row.
I
Welcome,
know.
sir. And Jeff Cork.
Yay!
It's been a while. I've had
been
comments. When people aren't shouting about Dan Tack, they're shouting, Jeff Cork, bring us the cork.
All right.
So
here we
here
go.
it is.
So apparently that is enough to get me on, but the counterpoint is not enough to get JV off. Whatever.
You take what you can get. On this episode, we're talking about Pyre from Supergiant Games.
yeah.
Kind of sort of the follow-up to Bastion and Transistor. It's weird to frame it that way, but there it is. So we'll talk all about that. And then, JV, you played a lot of Wolfenstein II, the new Colossus.
Yeah, I played a fair bit of it.
There we go. So we're going to hot preview of that. Then we're talking about a little bit about Hey Pikmin. Jeff Cork, you're here for Miitopia
Yes.
on 3DS.
That's what people wanted. The second thing they were yelling when they're not talking about Dan Tack.
Long, boring Miitopia conversation.
Yes, Miitopia.
This
What
should be fun.
is Miitopia? Question number one.
JV, and then we're going to talk about Dream Daddy Simulator. Should be a fun chat. And then we have a surprise for the community email section. So stay tuned for that. Perhaps a new voice in the mix. And then back half of the show is an interview with Greg Kasavin from Supergiant Games.
Appropriately.
Isn't that? Yeah. So it's a lot of Pyre discussion.
We're going to sort of bookend this with Pyre.
Yes, the way all episodes should be.
Right.
So he's an interesting guy if you don't know him. He was the executive editor at GameSpot. He worked at GameSpot for like 10 years. Then he went on to work on the Command & Conquer series. Then he also wrote for Spec Ops a little bit in the mix there as well. And then they founded Supergiant Games and have cranked out Bastion, Transistor.
He's also an incredibly nice, good guy.
And it gets heartfelt towards the back half of the
Yeah?
interview. So yeah, he's a very sweet guy.
He's a
very
great
smart.
guy.
So we talk all about it.
When you say Spec Ops, you don't mean the line, though, right?
I do mean the line.
Really?
Yeah, the only
fascinating.
notable Spec Ops, as far as I know.
I was about to say, like, why would he say that if it wasn't the line? Like,
all
just
right.
like,
I should just refer to it as the line.
That's the greatest work of American fiction ever because it took the bold stance that, hey guys, war stinks.
That's right.
It's very...
But interview with Greg, he talks about like some regrets he has from the GameSpot era, which are interesting, and then also he compares Pyre to the previous releases of the studio.
If we're like proud of the games we make, then we're not just going to turn around and say like this one's going to be even better than that piece of junk we made 3 years ago. You know.
So that's it. So stay tuned to the back half of the show for that. But for now, let's actually talk about Pyre.
All
Miller,
right.
You reviewed it.
I did.
What'd you think?
I really liked it.
Okay. It seemed like here's my outside perspective. It seems cool. Seems like you liked it, and then towards the end, you're like, oh boy, this is longer than I thought, which I thought was going to be a downside, but then you ended up giving it an 8.75.
Yeah, I mean, it is a longer game than what they've done before. It's more of a classic RPG experience where you're dealing with a whole party of characters that you're developing over time. And there's something that happens about, I would say maybe somewhere between a third and halfway through the game that opens it up and makes the entire experience be sort of more free form. And that has both good things about it and bad things about it. But I will say that it does what every one of that studio's games has done up to this point, which is to blow me away with originality.
Totally.
Right? Like the way that they approach storytelling and world creation and the integration of art and gameplay and music and character creation is in such a way that you always feel like there's some aspect of that you just don't totally understand, but that's okay, right? Like that this is a world you're just being dropped into, and it has a depth of history to it and a depth of character relationships that predate what is happening in the story.
But something we talk about in the interview later on in the show, something this game does that's so smart is in all dialogue, sometimes when there's like a key word, a key pronoun, I guess, you can kind of hover over it and it'll give you the backstory. It's like building a wiki into your game, and it works so well for just like, wait, what was that word again? How does this relate to that? What is the downside?
Hey, real quick, what is this game? I don't know.
All right, so here we
question.
go. Pyre's a game about you are an exile that has been flung down into a world that exists sort of beneath the normal world. And in the normal world, there's this kind of unjust theocracy that is the ruling order of the day. And in the Commonwealth is the name of this land.
Cork, it's a NBA Jam RPG.
Okay, thank you.
And
But go on, Miller.
and they fling their exiles. I was going to get there.
I'm sure you were.
They fling their criminals and their exiles and their undesirables down into this other land called the Downside. And within that world, the only way to find freedom is to fight in the rights, which is really just an excuse for Supergiant Games to put in a old school arcade sports game in their fantasy RPG as the sort of central gameplay loop.
So it's like Blitzball.
But with basically. But there's a bunch of story and characters
Like
and
Blitzball in Final Fantasy.
and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I'm still confused about the larger structure and the larger loop. I've just played like the first hour of the game, and it's a lot of reading.
It is,
which is fine. It's well written from what I've seen so far, and then jump to a battle. Does it maintain just that simple loop of like storytelling decisions and then jump into a battle throughout the entire game?
Through the entire game, you're always returning to the rights. There's not the idea that somehow you get partway through the game and like, oh my, now it's totally changed and we're not doing this battle sport anymore. That is what the game is about, is conducting these rights, winning or losing them, and then continuing on past there. It does change a little bit as there are more characters that join your party, and each one of those has different abilities that helps to make the game, the sport game, a little bit more kind of varied and challenging.
Yeah.
And you also have a point where it completely opens up and you begin going back to previous places that you've been and fighting groups that you've already fought once, a second or third time.
And that's okay?
It is okay because they continue the narrative loop of developing relationships between those characters, right? So in the first time you fight them, you might learn about one of your characters has a sister who's on one of the opponent's teams. And there's some sibling rivalry there that's really deep, and there's a lot of betrayals and anger that's left over there. And we introduce that in the first fight that we see them. But the next time, if you happen to encounter them again, that story then continues, and we learn more about that relationship between these two sisters.
Hey, Miller.
Yeah.
Is this kind of like the role that competitive bending played in Legend of Korra?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is. That's actually an interesting comparison because what happens in that story is that you have very distinct relationships that are unfolding through drama that happens outside of the sport, but then the drama is carried out onto the field and plays into what happens in the sport.
Right.
Now, there's some things that make the game even more compelling beyond that. But one of the biggest things is that the game has a continuous flow without save points, really. That was impressive.
Go on.
We're listening.
So, no save points.
Completely.
Well, no fail states would be maybe the better way to say it, right? If you lose a match in this game, the game continues going, and the consequences of what happens carry through to the rest of the game, even in really important matches.
Like Colony Wars. That sounds amazing.
So when you can have situations arise where you're really planning around like, okay, this is what I'm going to do with my team, and like there becomes a certain point where you retire your players, sort of. But in so doing, I mean, it's sort of built into the structure of the concept, right? Like this is how you get freedom for your characters, right? Is they're involved in the rights.
Oh, so you grant them their freedom once you've worn them out.
So you're trying to sort of like get them freedom, right? But if the natural conclusion of that is the idea that like your best players sometimes, and the ones who are most dear to your heart that you want to like offer the chance for like escaping this torture and this bad place, they're now no longer a part of your team. And you have to kind of continue on without them. And there's a real sense of like loss there, both in terms of like, oh man, that guy was really good on the field, but it was also like, I liked the conversations I had with them.
JV, this is like the end of Aladdin when he has to free the genie, and it's very emotional. But then he puts on the goofy hat and goes to Disneyland or whatever.
He's just translating for JV into terms.
I'm trying to help.
He's trying to wake JV up. For the people who are just
like
listening, JV has not left the room. He's still with us.
No, like I'm paying attention because the thing is like, okay, I'm gonna play it because Supergiant Games is great. Like Bastion's one of my favorite games of all time. I was less in love with Transistor, but that's fine. But with sort of sportsy games, like my main issue here is like, okay, let's take this sort of alternate sports genre, right? Like we have Rocket League. and the hook
best.
with Rocket League is clear. It's RC cars with, soccer.
Flip and kickballs around.
Yeah. And then like desert golfing is really cool because it like pares away everything down to this frustrating but really sort of gripping experience that you can play on the go.
Endless torture.
Yeah. No, it's a weird game. It's a game for weirdos like me who are into masochism, I guess. But like, what's the hook for this outside of the Supergiant thing? Like, that is what I'm waiting for. That no one has like explained it to me. What is the hook for Pyre that exists outside of that studio?
I think the sport itself was way more fun than I thought it was going to be.
Interesting.
I think I went into it with a perception of it being. If anybody can think back to some of the earliest of those classic arcade sports, you might recall like old ice hockey, right? Where you have like the big slow guy, the small fast guy, right? And at least at the beginning of Pyre, that's what you're starting with. You said you played the first hour.
Yeah.
So you have a sense of that, right?
Clear archetypes, yeah.
Very clear archetypes, but they all have very similar abilities. And like you'd feel like, oh, well, this is kind of neat, but it's hard for me to see much depth here.
That's where I'm at.
Fair?
It's like even like a skill tree popped up, and it's like, okay, pretty basic abilities. I can't imagine playing this for what? How long is the game overall?
It's between 15 and 20 some hours.
Seems like a lot for what I've seen so far, but what does it add?
So the subsequent classes that you're getting change up that game, and those classes are also beginning to show up on your opponent teams, and you have to account for them. So to give you an example, there's a class late in the game that's basically like a tree person, right? Like a treant kind of guy, right?
Okay.
And they can put a sapling out onto the field that creates its own aura, right? Its own protective aura that just is a stationary spot on the field. They can also teleport by dropping down to the ground and zipping across and reappearing as a tree someplace else. And they can generate a personal shield that blocks attacks, right? So a completely different skill set from the starting ability sets of those characters that you begin with at the beginning. And you're choosing who you put out in the roster. You're also looking at what the opponent team has fielded, seeing what their abilities are, and trying to balance against that.
So it turns into more of a hero-based game than we realize.
It does.
Okay.
It does.
So are the other characters people?
Yes.
So why do you care why is a tree that can teleport?
Well, you start with a dog on your team, so
you do.
It's a little loosey-goosey.
It's like a talking tree. Like it's totally a fantasy world.
Okay.
Right?
We glossed over that.
And
Well,
so
we
you
can't
have-
stress enough that this world is wild. Yeah, like Miller said,
okay.
it's super unique.
It's
out of the
super
gate.
weird. There's talking dogs and talking trees. There's like one of your characters at a certain point is a bog witch. There's a whole race of like weird worms that live in the sea.
What is this, Bungie?
And each one of them, brings a different set of abilities to the table. But you also get to know the individual that's on your team and have conversations with them and see what their motivations are, learn about their history, learn about their regrets. And so there is that kind of RPG storytelling core, but then you're getting back into this sport all the time.
Yeah, it just feels like the only reason that I would be interested in playing this is because Supergiant is involved. Just because I have not... Like, it just sounds so complex. Like, I'm not saying that, like, you're doing a bad job of selling this game to me. It just sounds like there's so many ideas going on here. There's, like, RPG branching stuff. There's, like, a sports game.
Well, keep in mind, it's basically a text adventure outside of the arcade sports game, right?
I think that to be fair, JV, it is as complex as you're describing. There's a lot of different ideas at play here, and the world is very complicated. The sport itself does, like, the full complexity of it takes a while to get under your belt to master, but that's kind of it's also gradually introduced that I don't think it comes across as overwhelming. Has your experience in the first hour been that you felt totally overwhelmed?
It seems all right. The part that's so confusing to me is like the stars, where it'll make you look at the sky and it's like, I don't know how many choices I have here. I don't know if I should be scanning around or it's pretty linear.
In the beginning, it is relatively linear.
You're choosing where to go next, and it's like looking up the
skies. It starts out
skies.
almost like a road trip story, right? Where you have this like wagon that you and your party are traveling across the countryside, going to these different battles, right? These rites.
Yeah.
But wherever possible, they create allusions to the sports dynamic that they're talking about, right? There is the idea, as I referred to before, that you're eventually having to retire your best and most experienced characters. There's the idea at one point that you begin to have, like, there are fans
Mhm.
It's all couched within this fantasy RPG setting, so I don't want to spoil too much. But there's like a fan group that begins to follow different teams around. There's a person on your team who's effectively a manager that's tracking your win-loss ratio and the win-loss ratio of all the other teams that are out there.
Yeah.
And so that you can determine who you want to go up against next. There's the idea even that like you can have a character who gets injured in a match, and so they're out for the next match.
Is this the greatest sports campaign mode ever created?
I really think that it might be.
So bizarre.
It's super bizarre, but that is what I like about Supergiant Games stuff, is that without fail, each of the 3 games that they have released has been very unusual and has just gone for it.
There's
right?
no chance another studio would have stumbled across a similar game.
No.
Yeah.
No, like it's completely original and very different. And it also has, to take it back, JV, to your point, I don't think it's a point to be ignored that like the only reason you said the only reason I might play this was that it's a Supergiant Games game, right?
Oh, yeah, I will play it because it's Supergiant.
And that's another important takeaway here, right? Like Supergiant has this lush, vibrant art style, has the world building chops that would compete with any other studio. I would put them up against BioWare. I would put them up against Bethesda,
Psionics,
like Arcane. I mean, I think they have that tier of smart world building that they're doing. They have a musical partner that they bring back for every one of their games, and there's always these sort of like poignant sung musical tracks that are introduced at certain moments in the game, and sure enough, you're probably not there yet, but they kind of like save that, and you have those moments where you're like, okay, this is a really cool scene. I can tell because we now have this like, this song being sung, right?
Wojcik? Cameo?
So that the aesthetic experience of Supergiant Games product is very much present here.
Yeah.
But they're just trying something that's a little bit further afield than what they'd had with Bastion,
including a PvP mode, which is pretty different for them.
Yeah. So in addition, I don't want to make too big of a deal of that because it's a local mode for just 2 players. You can't play it online or anything. But there is a competitive. Like I think it'd be best for 2 people who'd like finished the game, who understood all the skills and understood all the characters. You can actually go in, play local couch local couch competitive play with any of the characters that are in the game, including ones that are enemy players.
That you've encountered in the campaign so far.
Yes.
Okay.
And so you go through and you can experiment with different team makeups, and you can play against AI without having to worry about how it's going to affect your campaign. You can set up AI and what match board do I want to play on, because there's different setups of like the obstacles that are out on the board.
Yeah.
What characters do I want? What difficulty do I want? And it just lets you dig deeper into the actual sport experience, and it's a good bit of fun.
Right on. So, dumb specs, PC, PS4 only right now.
That's right.
There we go. 875 for Matt Miller.
I liked it a lot. I think if you're looking for something that's just a little bit different this summer, this is a good option.
This is the way to go.
Yeah.
Miller, someone wrote in an email, and we don't get to it later on in the show. Spoiler, I know what the email section is like later on in the show. But someone sent an email and it's like, you guys always talk about Matt Miller being this lore master, and we haven't really seen it. Like, you're very eloquent every time you speak, but people are looking for an opportunity to like open up your mind, and you can show us what you can do. It's like the end of Incredibles where they're trying to get Dash to run fast. You know what I mean? How would we best present your special skill set here at Game Informer, Miller?
I don't know. I sometimes take issue with the idea that I'm some sort of like lore expert on stuff. I do think that I care a lot about the power of storytelling, and so in a lot of cases,
everyone says that though, but people aren't able to recite intricate lore details of
but
all these different universes.
But like the reason that I get fascinated with these different universes is less because of the individual facts about stuff, because I think that like in any given fictional universe, there's a billion people who understand Star Wars or Destiny or Assassin's Creed or Star Trek or any of these franchises that I really like They understand it better than me. Like they know the small pieces of lore better than me. I think what I really like is the idea of like the way those different universes, the commonalities between them, right? I like to look for the ways that like storytelling echoes itself in different universes, because it turns out in the real world there's only the real world.
Yeah.
Right? There's only one real universe, right?
Mhm.
But in the world of fantasy and science fiction, like storytelling and speculative fiction, you have all of these other worlds and these creators who have found ways to echo the things we care about in their own fictional backdrops. And that's what fascinates me
That's
about
good. So
storytelling.
The way you get them going basically
Yes.
is say, "Hey Miller, who do you think the best Daedric prince is?" But have to pee. And then you will get a 45-minute long treatise.
he has a Terminator vision and he sees your bladder full. It's like, all right, let's go. Time to sit down.
Why don't you have a seat right here?
Hey, okay, best format to bring that out, Miller. Here's what I have in mind. Like the back
Okay.
half of a podcast
Yeah.
one time, we just have different universes on two spinny wheels, right?
Yes.
Like full Price is Right style setup.
Okay.
And then we just spin them. And then whatever those two wheels land on, you have to talk about the common themes and the essence of humanity exemplified by the fusion of those two worlds. Like what both of them are driving towards.
Yeah.
Is that Prime Miller? How do we get Prime
Yeah,
Miller?
no, I think that'd be kind of neat.
Okay.
Dice would be easier.
Dice also. Fantastic. You're
Yeah.
talking about Dice's world building?
Like
Instead of
roll the die, and
building
if you
a Price
get
is Right kind of
if you get a 4, it's Fallout, and if it's you roll a 6, is that what you mean?
yeah, it would be a
Yeah.
20-sided dice. Don't be ridiculous.
Wow. Yeah.
All right,
Of course.
perfect. Well, for now, I think we've heard enough of you, Miller.
Yeah, I gotta get out of here.
All right. Do you want to? You had a new method that you wanted to try out for warping out.
Well, I was just curious if it would work. Should we try it?
I have a
let's
feeling
do
it will. Go ahead.
Okay, let's try it. Ready? Abracadabra, go.
Abracadabra, go!
Oh, that's the voice of Ben Reeves, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
God, it was a millisecond, but it feels like a lifetime.
It feels like a really rude amount of time has passed.
Welcome to the show, Ben Reeves.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Yeah, you
really did.
Hey, JV Gwaltney, now that Ben Reeves is
Hey.
here, let's finally talk about Wolfenstein II, The New Order.
It's the new Colossus.
The new Colossus order. All right, shape up the order of things. How does it go? What'd you see?
I played through about an hour of new gameplay and a new level that takes place in Roswell, New Mexico. That's a lot of new.
I
in the
like
new
it.
Colossus.
That
Yeah.
sounds good. So the idea of Nazis, a Nazi version of Roswell, that's tough to resist in a video game setting.
Yeah. Oh,
Is
and
it as
they
good as
go
it seems?
full ham on it too.
Please, without spoiling anything.
Because you're not in Area 51, are you, JV?
I mean, technically, yeah, you go to Area 51, but the Nazis have turned it into Area 52.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Hang on a second.
Wait.
So, in the 40s, the Nazis won the war. That's the premise for the new Wolfenstein.
Yeah,
right?
the Nazis won the war, and then the New Order takes place in 1960, and this one takes place in 1961. So we're in the 60s now.
Well, hang on a second. So
But
did they
Area
see
51 wouldn't have existed
right?
in that universe.
I mean, they do what they want with the fiction.
Okay, is it aliens? What do you see? How do they capitalize on that Roswell setting?
No,
in
like
Wolfenstein?
in the original game, there's this technology that's that basically like the Jewish community has put together called Dot You Should, and it's like ancient stuff, and then the Nazis sort of take it over and use it to take over the world.
Okay.
Like it's very high tech stuff, and so like that is ostensibly in this world that explains like the alien extraterrestrial stuff. It's like all the things people are seeing are like Dot You Should technology.
Dot You Should?
Yeah, dot You Should.
Okay.
Yeah.
This isn't dot hack. This is something
No.
else entirely.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Reeves.
Is Dot You Should a thing? I don't know.
I don't know if it's a real
Sounds
world
like
thing, but
gibberish.
this is like the secret, world conspiracy group. Like this is their tech in this universe.
So, what did you think of what you played? Because it's your first time playing any new
Yeah, this is my
Colossus.
first time playing any of the new Colossus. I love the New Order. I think it's a flawed game, the original game, but I really, really like it a lot in spite of those flaws. And it feels like I didn't get a real sense of like how the story is shaping up outside of like they have a big vision for this game where it's like a road trip game. Like I straight up asked the creative directors, "Is this The Last of Us but with like, Nazis instead of zombies? Is that what you guys are going for?" And he's like pretty much said, "Yeah." Like it's a very road trip game where BJ and like the Resistance are going from like Manhattan to New Orleans to Roswell and a bunch of other places in the United States.
Resistance 3 is calling.
Just killing Nazis. So I got to play through one level and it opened up very strange. at least for Wolfenstein, where it's a non-combat level. It's very exploratory. You're walking around Roswell, and you're seeing like how the Nazi regime functions. Like you have Nazi guards walking around, sort of like bumping shoulders and having chatty conversations with like the Ku Klux Klan members. And it's very interesting.
Are they friends?
Yeah, they're friends. They're buddies.
Yeah.
Except the Nazi is like, but don't ever forget we're better than you. But you guys are cool, but we're better than you. Like that's straight up a conversation that happens that you can never hear.
Is it too on the nose, or is it perfect in the Wolfenstein universe?
I mean, if you take into account that Wolfenstein has always been pulp to a level, like it's fine.
Okay.
Like this isn't trying to be like a super serious, political commentary game. At least the New Order wasn't. I felt like, but it does have somber moments of storytelling and sort of beautiful character moments. And I feel like they're trying to strike that balance again with sort of like the ridiculous splatterpunk of like just blowing away countless Nazis with like ridiculous weaponry, and also just having moments where two characters will talk about religion or love or sex or racism or whatever. Trying to strike that balance.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of the splatterpunk crazy stuff in the gameplay segment I played, where I was just killing tons of Nazis. There have been a lot of enhancements to the gameplay. Like in the New Order, you can only upgrade one gun, and was like the laser welder you get, which was a really bad version of the gravity gun from Half-Life 2. Like that's what they tried to do with it. You'd use it to like cut through like frames and like solve puzzles and stuff, but you could also use it as a weapon that could kill multiple enemies in a room. But for every weapon in your arsenal in the new Colossus, you find weapon kits littered around every level, and you can upgrade. And each weapon I saw had about 3 upgrades. So for like your pistol, you could get a silencer, you could attach a silencer, you give it powerful magnum rounds. The rifle, you could attach like a scope to it, and it really lets you sort of like pick your play style. So that was cool. You can now dual wield any weapon together. In the original game, you were stuck to like dual wielding like 2 machine guns or like 2 shotguns, but in this one, you can just go crazy. You can have like a pistol in one hand and like a shotgun in the other.
That sounds good.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really, really fun. There was one part when I was going through the train, and I turned like a corridor because there's a part in this level where you're navigating a train, and there was just like 5 Nazis. And of course, like seconds before, you get the shotgun. And so you just like run down that level blasting them, or run down that corridor just tearing them to pieces. It's utterly gory and ridiculous. But yeah, what were you saying, Reeves?
Oh, I was just asking, is it that traditional thing where like one trigger controls one gun, the other trigger controls the other? Because it's a weird thing, but I almost prefer it when it's like, I'll just fire both guns with the one trigger. I kind of prefer that.
Yeah, but you couldn't do that if you have an Uzi and you have a shotgun on the other hand.
I guess that's true. If it's a different weapon,
You got it. You got to
fires
make sense for it.
differently.
All right, JV, what is the insight into what you played that only you could provide? Because you played that original game 6,000 times, 8 Ways to Sunday, you just replayed it. What is the most detailed, smart thing you can say because of that experience about the new game?
I'm confident that it will be a very fun game to play.
So
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah.
Hang on,
Sorry.
go on.
But I'm
Down in front.
I'm concerned about how ambitious it's trying to be. Like the original game, it was ambitious on a certain level, but it's also a very compact, linear game from like A to Z. Like we were telling a story about resistance fighters rising up against the Nazis and taking them on, and occasionally we'll have moments where we give our characters room to breathe and so on and so forth. And it was just very well done for the most part. I felt like this one, it feels like they're being super ambitious, not just with like the narrative, like introducing like a huge cast of characters, because there are a lot more characters this time around with like the resistance fighters, but it's also the levels are way different. And the New Order levels were basically like corridors, which made sense because Doom and Wolfenstein 3D were all very corridory.
Yeah.
But this, even though we were underground, what we felt like it was like a huge arena. Like these were massive levels in terms of like Wolfenstein.
And you just worry about them pulling off that new combat space, or do you prefer corridors?
No, it's more with the story that I'm concerned about. Like, I'm sure the arena stuff will be fine and fun, and like what I played was very fun. It was a bit more difficult because you couldn't exactly like duck around in the corridors and whatnot in this game because it's a huge open space. But I am concerned about the story because there was also one segment we didn't get much time with like the new characters, but one of them is like a conspiracy theory crackpot because of course we're in Roswell and we're near Area 51. And just like every other word he said was "f*** this and that," and it just wasn't good writing.
Really?
Yeah, it was bad, like straight up bad.
Quentin Tarantino.
But that one lady, talks in jive and has an afro, JB. So there's a counterpoint to your bad writing.
I mean,
It was the 70s or 60s.
yeah. So that's
61 immediately as soon as that calendar switched over, the hair got big. Summer of Love, Grace Slick.
oh, there's
White
a lot
Rabbit.
of that too.
Look out!
So that's what I'm concerned about: is will the writing will it stand up to the new order, which wasn't like masterful writing, but it was really good
It was
writing.
fun and solid,
Yeah.
and it was
Fun, pulpy.
consistent. for
Yeah, it
that.
was consistent.
Yeah.
It was consistently fun and occasionally like emotionally resonant. And I'm not convinced that the new Colossus can pull that off yet, just from what I've seen.
Huh.
Are they going to have? Maybe they've already said, but the last game had multiple story paths. Are they going to have that in this, like multiple timelines?
They have not said that. They have said that the timeline stuff from the first game will carry over because you'll get an option in the game's prologues, sort of like I'm guessing like The Witcher 3 did or like Andromeda did, where you get to choose the timeline of the choice that you made in the original game. So if you saved Fergus or Wyatt, you get to make that choice. I am not sure if there will be another choice like that.
Yeah, it was really just the one choice, and it kind of had
Yeah,
two
yeah.
different outcomes.
Yeah, I don't know if the new Colossus will have a choice like that. It would stand to reason that there would be one, I guess.
Certainly.
It
Yeah.
was cool. It was a cool like way to just sort of like, I don't know, color the experience, but I didn't feel like it was so dramatic. That
No, it wasn't
I
dramatic.
needed to play it multiple times, but you
Yeah.
probably
Yeah,
played
it was
like
neat.
7 times, right?
Yeah, it
He
was,
couldn't get enough of that choice.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, it
What
was-
happens
it-
if I choose it this way again?
yeah, no, like ultimately the choice difference is minor. Like you get it depending on what choice you make. Like a minor character will show up. You'll either get like Jimi Hendrix or like the female version of Tesla. Who's Tekla? Yeah,
His name's Tekla.
yeah. Anyway, and then some
owner.
levels are different. Like a prison breakout level in the New Order. If you choose one character, it's a straight up like assault and getting out and fighting your way out from beginning to end. Whereas another one is you just sneak out while everyone else is fighting.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
all
stuff
the-
like that.
That's all the last game you're talking about.
Yeah, the last
Right,
game.
right, right.
Yeah, so
Hopefully it'll be like that in this one as well.
yeah.
So new Colossus, you feeling confident about that October 27th release date?
Oh yeah, what I played was super solid tech wise. Like it was very, very fun.
Right on.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of very, very fun, Ben Reeves,
Hey,
you're just a fun person, and
Oh,
you
and
played,
here I am.
hey, exclamation point, Pikmin.
Hey, Pikmin. I couldn't stop yelling, hey, Pikmin, the whole time.
Nintendo's first hay-based game in the Hay series since Hey
That's
You
right.
Pikachu,
That's
I
right.
think.
You
So
can't get enough of that. Finally, it's back, guys. I know you've been begging Nintendo for years.
how
here's
is
the thing
Hey
about this.
Pikmin?
It's hey, it's I'm a Pikmin guy. I'm enthusiastic about it. I'm a Pikmin nut, you could say. I've liked all the Pikmin games,
That's probably a better way of saying
and
it.
now I can no longer say I like all the Pikmin games, unfortunately. But
Oh.
yeah, because Hey Pikmin, I give it a 6. The reviews, the review actually goes up tomorrow when the game comes out.
Okay.
The embargo's up actually, so I can talk about it. Oh no, wait, the
It went
game
up
comes
to-
out tomorrow, but my review went up yesterday.
Yeah, I was about to say we read that on the site today.
What timeline are we in, Reeves?
That's
Did
right.
we
We're
save
in the
Jimi
timeline.
Hendrix as a lady?
Yeah, that's right.
All right,
Jimi
so
Hendrix in the
what's wrong with this game?
Well, just to set it up for people who haven't seen it, it's a 2D version of the game, and I think a way to make it work for 2D would be like have a top-down view as 2D. That's not what they did. They did a side view, so it kind of looks like a side-scrolling game.
They chibi roboed it.
Yeah,
Ziplash, that is.
That's right.
I only wish it was as good as Chibi Robo.
Oh, crud.
But
Hey.
so you're Olimar and you're walking around, you're collecting your Pikmin, and it's a series of like set levels rather than like one large environment. So you're going through these set levels and collecting Pikmin and attacking enemies. But I mean, it's a very mediocre experience because of the 2D. You can't like maneuver around enemies, so you end up kind of just tossing them on top of enemies and then they die. The enemy AI is very simplified because it can't like move around you.
Is it just as simple as Pikmin for babies? Is that what's going on here? Hey,
that-
babies,
is that the
come
headline?
gather around.
It's like I think no, I don't know how to make that joke funnier. Sorry. You did it, Hanson.
You found the
funniest
perfect
it could
joke.
be.
So at the end of this experience, you're saying, a la Nomar.
The other thing I didn't like about it, I'll just say, is like your Pikmin, you gather Pikmin in each level, and unlike in the previous games where part of the experience is collecting those Pikmin and
Right.
raising up your army, these guys just sort of get added to your like collection back at home base.
Uh-huh.
And so you start out each level with no Pikmin, and you're just starting up from scratch. So there's no like reward to it. I think that
Mhm.
sense of progression is lost, which is unfortunate.
So we do like a speed round then. Are there red Pikmin?
yes,
Purple Pikmin?
the flyy guys, yeah.
The rock Pikmin.
Rock Pikmin.
Yes.
The blue ones.
Yes.
The water ones.
Yes. Yes.
The white ones. The poison type.
The poison type. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there what was that? Didn't they have like Duracell batteries or something in one of those games?
Yeah. Can you pick up a Duracell battery? I've been told to ask you that.
Yeah, there is a Duracell
How about a strawberry?
game.
Can you pick up a strawberry?
You know what? I don't remember if I saw a strawberry.
How
or
about
not.
a dumbbell? That's always the big
think
prize.
I might have saw that. I saw a lot of like glasses.
Uh-huh.
There's a lot of like there are a few very light
Keys?
puzzles where it's like here, pick up these glass shards and make a bridge out of it.
Okay, like pottery shards.
Yeah, a lot of pottery shards.
Okay.
That sounds great. Hey, Chef Cork, how's Miitopia?
Basically, don't play Pikmin. Hate
Okay,
Pikmin.
great. Miitopia.
right.
Cork, here's my experience of you playing Miitopia.
Okay,
As I sit
lay it
next
on
to
me.
you, and about every 4 hours, I'll
Yes.
hear a like you kind of exhale, snort, laugh.
Yeah.
So that's all I know.
Yeah.
Fill us in. What is going on? What's making you laugh?
Okay. So Miitopia, real quick, it's kind of like a utopia, but with me's. Some clever wordplay. So it's a Nintendo 3DS game that is based on me's, but unlike something like, say, Tamagotchi Life, this is
Yeah.
a role-playing game. So you basically you make your character and the rest of your party using your own custom Mii's that you'd build yourself, or you can go to like the Mii Central and download things that other people have made.
Which
So I
is-
started off
Yeah.
very ambitious. I'm like, I'm going to populate this amazing world that I'm going to explore with people I know. So
Have
I made me. And I made my wife, and I made my kids. I made you. I made
Your 5
Kyle.
favorite people.
These are all the people that are important in my life, and
Yeah.
Kyle. And then I was like, oh, all my great ideas. And then the party gets split up, and then
Jeff Cork, almost on a daily basis, I see you lean back in your chair and say, "Oh, all my great ideas."
all my great ideas. I have so many great ideas. And then eventually I was like, I am really tired of making me. So I just started downloading them from the Mii Central. So eventually my party consisted of like, hey, it's me, because you're always the main character or whatever character you choose, which will probably be you.
Explain that a little bit.
Me. And my party was like Ness from Earthbound.
Yeah.
The Pringles guy. And the guy for the chips. And
Yeah.
Soldier 76, I think, was my party one time. I had
Okay.
Pac-Man, John Cena.
Santa
And-
Claus, did you get him?
Don't be ridiculous.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What about a Duracell battery?
A Duracell battery. Yahoo!
The
So anyway,
Rock.
I've not finished playing this. I need to beat it. I have not written my review, obviously, because of that. This game's never ending. It keeps going on, and it's like,
What do you? I don't understand. So you have all these weirdos.
yeah,
and you
it's like
wander around
then
and
it's like
battle.
then it's like a turn-based RPG. yeah.
Is there a story?
There is a story, but unlike a lot of RPGs, the story is not what is kind of propelling you along. I think
Yeah.
it's more about the silliness that you kind of get with. It's like a Tamagotchi Life level of humor. So a
'Cause
lot
you
of
see these
like
people interact. In
you
weird
see them
ways.
interact, and relationships are a big part of it. So you have 4 people in your party at any time. You have me. I made myself in the game as the main character,
Cool.
and then the rest of your party. And then as you go through a little level, and then afterwards you stay in an inn, and then you can choose where everyone sleeps. And if you have people sleeping in the same room, their relationship grows a little bit because they're hanging out and having a fun time.
It's like cover story trips.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then depending on the relationship, as it grows, they'll do things like for instance, I might want to impress you in combat, so I'll go like, "Hey, get a load of this." So then I'll do more damage because I'm trying to show off for you. Or like, Ben is going to get attacked, and I'm friends with Ben. I'll say, "Hey, look out!" And then you'll be like, "Huh?" And then back up, and then the attack will miss, or things like that. And then also bad things will happen. Like my character right now who's based on me, is a tank, but because Nintendo's having some fun with it, it's an actual army tank. So it looks like a me, but he's got like around his waist is the tank treads, and he's got a hat that's like
Huh.
the turret. But anyway, he does an
Like a
attack where he will
tank
grab one of his teammates and do a human cannonball, which visibly upsets the person who's being shot at the target,
Oh,
and then
good.
that will, after a while, degrade their relationship. So like they'll
Huh.
start being an ass to the other guy and like interfere with him and everything. So it's kind of like it's a silly game where the relationships are, and just seeing what kind of weird crap is coming ahead is what drives you along. And mechanically, I think the fighting is very interesting. And also, you have a ton of fighting in it, right? But it also lets you do an automatic battles, so you can just sit there and watch them. And I've been doing that the vast majority of the time, to be honest,
Really?
because I find it interesting just to see. I mean, you're going to end up doing the same stuff a lot of times anyway in a lot of these turn-based RPGs. Like, okay, I want to do the attack where I attack a bunch of guys, but then
Yeah.
that way you just kind of sit back and enjoy the show.
and it makes you laugh.
This
It makes
sounds
me laugh.
really
It's-
weird.
It's very weird.
So-
I'm into it.
Do you
Yeah.
guys level up, or is it all?
Yeah,
like
guys
just-
level up. You have different costume elements that you buy, like weapons and armor that are all very silly. And
So it seems like with all the the cool people you can import, like all the crazy created
Yeah.
Miis,
yeah,
like that'd be fun. But then you wouldn't want to switch them out halfway through, right?
Well,
Like, to
unfortunately,
get Santa Claus.
the thing that it does, though, which I find kind of aggravating, is that several times in the game it'll be like the premise is that your Dark Lord, the Dark Lord, who in my case is Jojuba, has taken away all the faces of people and put them on enemies throughout the world. So as you're defeating enemies, there's like what I think I showed you. There was one enemy who is aiming its posterior
Oh
at
my
the
God.
player and gyrating it, and it is a turkey. It's called a twerky. But then it would have like eyeballs on its butt, and then what you're doing ostensibly is defeating the twerky, and then the eyeballs go back to the rightful
and
owner.
that's not something you created. That's
No,
something
that's just
Nintendo
part of the
created?
deal. Yeah, exactly.
The algorithm put a face on a turkey's butthole and then it twerked into the camera.
Yeah, it was.
That's
Whoa,
Miitopia.
wait.
Quite
So is that
gruesome.
something that was crafted by Nintendo, or is that something that the game sort of generated?
Oh, the game that's just an enemy type. Yeah,
Okay.
a twerky, for instance. But anyway, the Dark Lord, who I highly recommend making a Jojuba. Of
course.
very
Yes.
good. He separates your party several times, and so you have to start. And you get some new job classes. There's a variety of job classes, and there's also personality types that you can have. So I mean, it's fairly deep.
What was
But
your
you
job?
have to start from scratch. My job, when I first started off, I believe I was like a mage,
Mhm.
and then I became an imp with a little pitchfork, and then now I'm a tank.
Little Randy Pitchfork.
Those are good choices.
Yeah, but it's fun because you can go like, hey, I want to make this person, and this person is kind of stubborn, so I'll have stubborn, and that means that sometimes they will attack twice in a row because they're not satisfied with the first attack, or they'll like fold their arms to protect themselves from an attack,
Yeah.
things like that.
Huh.
Ben,
Yeah.
I just want to draw attention. Did you say Randy Pitchfork?
It's not important. It sounds like you're having a good time with this game.
Yeah, I'm having a fine time with it. It's very long, which, I mean, I thought I was turning the corner on it. I mean, I've been playing it for what seems like forever. Probably 15, 20 hours or more. And
At
then
least it's not some sports game.
right, exactly. But then it just introduced, it did that thing where it's like, oh, here's like a whole new system of like side quests now. You're like, okay, I guess.
Huh. What an odd release.
It's very weird. And I kind of like how Nintendo's landed on what it has for the Miis. Like they are embracing the stupidity of it. And yeah, it's very silly.
I'll be damned.
Did you tell us about the main character? Who was that?
Oh, I loosely based on someone who's very near and dear to me. It's me.
Near a tomato, as JV once said.
It's a man.
JV Gwaltney.
Yeah,
We're
what's
talking
up?
about Near Automata. No, I'm not addressing you now. We're talking about Near Automata.
Yeah.
And he called it Near a Tomato.
Near a tomato. Oh boy. It's
Anyways.
a real good dad joke.
Speaking of relationships and daddies, what is the name of this game, JV?
Dream Daddy.
It's just Dream Daddy : something about
Is
dating.
it a dating simulator?
I think so.
Yeah.
So what is this? How much have you played?
I've played about an hour and a half of it.
Perfect.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, it's what it says it is. Like, you are a dad with a daughter. You're moving into a new neighborhood. You're getting to know all the dads who are there. And
They all have very unique
oh
personalities.
yeah, and you wanna bang one of them, man.
So this is the twist. So it's actually, is it produced by Game Grumps? It's somehow affiliated with Game Grumps, which is a confusing production.
I think they like helped write it, or like they definitely produced it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there were other parties involved besides Game Grumps.
That's right. But it's surprisingly well made.
No, it's really good. Like even outside of like like the hot and bothered aspect, or like how goofy it is. Like it is surprisingly emotional. Like the connection between you and your daughter. Like it's really well written.
It is. I mean, it is a lot of text. It's Persona 5.
Oh yeah, it's a visual novel.
Yeah, exactly. If you're going into it knowing that. So I'm an idiot. I like booted it up and played a bit of it. And I was like, okay, dad dating simulator, let's see what this is like. And it's like, wait, I'm a guy. All these characters I'm meeting are guys. What's going on? It's like, oh, okay, now I'm just having sex with a dad. Like, I didn't connect that it was just going to be
Wait, it went that
homosexual
far before you
relationships.
realized?
Yeah, I
we're
went
in
over to a
bed together?
guy's house and met him at a
Hey,
bar.
You got a sister? Where's this hot lady that
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
meet?
And it was like, oh, okay, I guess we're
in
going
your
to
bed? Is she there?
Oh yeah.
I'll be
Take off my
damned.
pants.
So it does a good job of presenting in a very anime way, like, here's all these wacky dads, choose your favorite.
Yeah, and let's back up a bit and talk about the character creator, because like
Oh, it's good.
there's Goku hair at one point. Like
My dad is just, I named him Roku, and he has Goku's hair and then just like a thin, crappy mustache. It's really
like
role
one
playing.
of like the pencil thin one.
Yeah,
What'd you name him?
Roku?
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
So
I
did
think-
they explain what happened to your daughter's mother?
I mean,
What's
in
that
my
situation?
playthrough, there's a choice where you get to choose, like, you adopted her or her mom died. I feel like
I think
it's
there's only
weird.
two separate options, but yeah, at some point it's kind of implied that mom's out of the picture.
Sure.
Also, yeah, wives are out of the picture for most of these dads floating around.
Except for
these
the
hot
one who's
screens.
a preacher or like
Yeah.
a youth minister.
And
Joseph.
she has the weird alcoholic preacher's wife,
yeah.
that like tries to hit on you in the bar, and then you push her aside to get to this hot daddy.
Wait,
Yeah.
so are they all dads as well?
Yeah, they're all dads.
Everyone's dads.
Yeah, everyone's a
This
dad.
is a weird
It's
concept.
dads all the way
Okay.
down.
And it does a good.
How old is your daughter?
Like what? She's in high school. She's a senior, high school senior.
Okay.
So
So you're not like leaving this child in a hot car while you're out trolling for dick. Dead dick. Sorry.
Is Dick the name of the guy? you fall in
Yeah,
love with?
it does a good job. There's a bunch of dad jokes. It lays into it pretty thick, but then also like the loading screen, there's dad tips.
Yeah.
It's like, remember to inflate your tires.
That's
awesome.
really good.
and then another one is like, ask your mother. Like just
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the game.
But it seems pretty creative. Like, I don't know how much it breaks out of the format, but even in the first half hour or so, another dad comes by and starts bragging about his daughter. And it's like,
Uh-oh.
oh, yeah. And then it breaks into a Pokemon
Pokemon's-
battle.
yeah.
Where it says
What?
Game Boy sprites and the two dads. And it's like the full Pokemon menu, except it's like brag, run away, distract, or whatever.
So
It's
you're like bragging on your daughter.
bragging about how smart your daughter is and the artwork she's turned in recently and how many awards she's won and all this stuff.
No, it's really clever.
Huh.
I feel like a lot of people went into it expecting it to be sort of like a parody of sort of like the horny visual novels that are everywhere on Steam, and it kind of is on a level, but it's good. Like, like a parody, I feel like there's that old rule where a parody has to be on one level, has to be a successful thing of whatever it's poking fun at.
Yeah.
Like Matt Hazard.
Wait, what?
No, go on.
Yeah.
Eat Lead, The Return of Matt Hazard.
Oh
you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah. Oh yeah, that game was bad. But yeah, and it works on that level, but it's also like the writing's just really good.
Yeah.
Like it's surprisingly good, and I think that's sort of the reaction that everyone who's playing it right now is having. It's like, I didn't expect it to be this good.
It plays into the kind of insecure dad angle quite a bit, where they're kind of like awkwardly talking to each other even before anybody's clothes are off. Every interaction is always a little bit awkward.
Mhm.
And I guess it's just modern dads these days, right, Dad Jeff Cork?
Yep.
How many-
They've nailed the life of being a dad.
How many parent to parent interactions that you've had have been awkward?
100%. Like every time I have to go to any kind of function at my kids' school, it just ends up with, thank God they invented cell phones. Like just like lean up against the wall and just tap at the screen, whether it's on or off. It does not matter. These freaking grown-ups.
Hey
are
Cork,
no
have you
good.
seen that really bad show, The Slap?
No.
The one where Spock like slaps some kid and then everyone gets angry.
No.
I saw
that have
a
ever
commercial for that, trailer for it at one point. I was like, is this a real show? This is like a parody of a show.
It's like White People the show.
Yeah.
What
it's
is it?
It's
White people, the show. This sounds like me.
I don't understand.
No, it's like it was a show that was on CBS or NBC where there is all this drama that unfolds in a neighborhood because a dad slaps one of the kids of another
it's
family.
like his
I'm not going to
friend's kid.
slap people.
Here's
I'm
the
just
problem.
ignoring them.
Sitcoms, I don't know.
I don't think it's a sitcom.
No, it's a drama. It's meant to be like a hardcore drama where where Spock slaps.
Oh, Zachary Quinto.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
It's modern day
Spock.
setting.
Well, it's still,
Suburbia.
it's a problem when shows put too much of an emphasis on the pilot episode. Like, what do they expect? Like season 12, people still remember the eponymous slap? Like, who the hell cares at that
Every-
point?
yeah.
And like
There's a
four
new
people
slap.
from that party are dead now by that point in the
Right.
show.
Of
Yeah.
course.
They come back and reenact the slap.
Yeah. So Elise is reviewing Dream Daddy.
Yeah, Lisa's reviewing it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what
How
you
Wait,
graphic
wait.
does this game get?
Wait,
Oh,
what?
it's all text. It just faded to black, I think.
Yeah,
funny sound
it's not really
effects or
like
anything?
bounce chicka wow wow like
Okay.
I
crazy.
don't think so. I don't think
Yeah.
there's a bed squeaking or anything.
Wait, Ben, which
Yeah.
dad do you want? Which dad do you want?
I knew you were
baby?
going to ask me this, and it was tough trying to remember. There's one like lumberjack dad who like hits you in the head with a log or something.
Hmm.
Huh.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Like at a-
Euphemism?
no, grow up. There was one kind of more construction-y, fatter dad. It's like I think.
Oh,
that's
Brian.
that's the underdog dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going with either like the coffee shop dad or
Oh, he's good.
Yeah, or the English teacher dad, like one of those.
How many dads are there?
It's not that many, like 5 or 6.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
That all happen to live in the same neighborhood.
And they're all very thirsty.
Yeah.
I was out of the office for a couple days and like catching up on Slack, and like all I see is this like long text chat of like something about Elise dating a dad. And I'm like, what is this about? Like trying to catch up. Why are we talking about this on Slack? I'm like, oh, it's a video game. This is weird.
It's a new era, baby. Get used to it. Steam's a weird place. But again, surprisingly well done from the little bit we've played so far. It's a weird thing. Do you guys want to move on to emails?
Sure.
All right, let's do it. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. I'm still here, but we have a whole new cast. We have Andrew Reiner.
Why, hello.
Welcome, sir. It's been a while.
Yeah.
We have Joe Juba.
That's me.
Yes, indeed. And then we have Imran Khan.
You got it completely wrong.
Imran
No, it was right.
Khan. Welcome, sir. You are our new news editor.
Yes, I am.
Welcome to the crew.
Thank you very much.
You've been in the office for a day and a half now.
Mhm.
What have you learned?
I have learned that the office is 2 floors, and beyond
great.
that, not much else.
Okay, all right. Well, that's all I asked.
And that's a good start.
Yeah.
I forgot we hired him. I went about my daily business. I just skipped all the training.
Eventually, somebody noticed
He's on
me
his
like
own.
hiding in the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only reason he found out about the second floor is because Reiner accidentally pushed him down the stairs.
Beautiful.
Accidentally, in quotes.
So you are going to be on the West Coast.
Mhm.
It's going to be confusing. Are you going to be working out of your home over there?
I'll be working out of my home. Yeah.
Okay, what's that going to be like?
Usually a lot like living there, but
Okay.
except I'm actually getting paid for it.
Do you have a little office set up, ready to go?
I have a separate desk, which is like very tiny and looks a lot like a play school desk.
Okay.
But other than that, it's more or less the same.
Wait, does it have squeaky hammers and like?
It doesn't yet. I think those are coming in the mail from IKEA soon.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Do you want like Game Informer posters to put up so it feels like an extension of the office? We can get you like,
A standee of Hansen.
yeah, or like an air conditioner that's too strong, or some sort of space heater that just fluctuates back and forth. We can get you some wood, some brick, give you the full office experience over
And
there.
just fall down the stairs a bunch, too.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
there's that.
I was actually walking by a GNC the other day, and they had just like they were going out of business or something like that, and there's like a big Terry Crews standee, and they're just like anyone who wants this can take it. So I was thinking about like I was house sitting for my brother at the time. I was like, what if I just put this in their doorway?
Or hide it in a closet.
Yeah,
I mean, that's you
Oh,
didn't do
man.
this.
I didn't have the ability to take it home with
You
me.
would think that the person wouldn't be able to finish writing that sign before somebody grabbed a Terry Crews.
Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Wow.
Joe was going to make a cut a hole in his mouth joke, which I think is very inappropriate joke. Let's grow up here, please.
You don't violate Terry Crews.
No, you do that. You do that just so you can put your tongue through his mouth and then just go.
You do that with Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Crackdown 3,
No,
pre-order.
from the back.
Mm.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not French kissing Terry Crews.
Yet.
Okay.
Just his brain, apparently.
The point of this email section, Imran, is to really get to know you,
Mhm.
to pry into your darkest depths and learn everything there is to know about you and your thoughts on games and life and everything about your history.
So it's like a first date, yeah.
It's going to be exactly like a first date. I hope you're ready. In fact, let me remind myself to treat it like a first date. But before we get to that, I want to talk to Andrew Reiner about Pokemon Go Fest.
Oh, man. What a good time.
Okay, so this is the first annual Pokemon Go Fest. You drove down to Chicago, right?
With my family because they play the game too. And I thought, I'm going to write this narrative of being at this family event. It's a family-friendly gaming event, the first I've come across.
Hey, Reiner, tell me, was your daughter looking forward to playing some
She
Pokemon
was, actually.
Go?
She digs it. She's good at it.
What? Look, your daughter's very smart. But
calls
what does
it-
it mean to be good at Pokemon Go?
She can do the curveball.
Oh, all right.
Throw it.
All right.
Wow.
She knows about berries and all that stuff.
I'm-
She's on top of it.
I was trying to set the stage to make it extra disappointing because when a kid's
Oh, okay,
expectations are on the line, then it's extra
So
sad.
we packed up like the wagon, a covered wagon for her,
Granny on top.
everything. Yeah, everything you would bring on a family trip, and oh my god, like it delivered. I mean, it was exactly what I wanted from a Pokemon Go event.
It was like a physical manifestation of the quality of the app and overall experience.
At launch when it didn't work.
So set this up. So how many people are there? Where is it?
Yeah, so it's I will walk you through the whole thing here.
Please.
So we got into Chicago the day before the event on Friday. 1 day festival, that's it. And it's in Grant Park in Chicago. If you know that area, it's right on the waterfront there, next to Millennium Park, all that stuff. Beautiful, huge space, perfect for this, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a big open field, kind of a tree-covered area. You know, it has kind of all the walks of life that you want from Pokemon. You got the water, you got all that stuff, right? So we got there the day before, and that night, Kelly, Evie, and I decided to go out into the park outside of the festival grounds and just start playing a little bit, right?
Sure.
So we went out there, started catching Pokemon. All of a sudden, the game kind of started to slow down. And as I'm looking around, I see other people walking around with phones with cables going into their pocket with their, rechargeable batteries. It's like they're playing. And then you start seeing Charmander shirts, Pikachu hats, all that stuff. There's a good, 36 people out there playing. And all of a sudden the app starts crashing. And I was like, this isn't good. This is the night before the festival. And there's hardly anybody in the park, considering the festival's expecting 20,000 people.
20,000.
Yeah. In under a mile radius. So
can you tell me what kind of stuff they'd like to lure 20,000 people?
Okay.
Lure. What did they what were people expecting? What did they say you get for going?
Sure. So they promised that there would be Pokemon that have never spawned in the Chicago area before. And one of the images they teased was Heracross, which is one you could only get like South America, above the equator, a little bit into Florida.
Okay.
So that was a pretty big deal for people in the Midwest, right? Yeah. But then also that the first legendary was going to be there. And we had to catch enough Pokemon in the park to lure out the legendary beast. And then if we defeated the beast in the park, it would be unleashed upon the world. So there was like some high stakes there for people that are trying to catch them all.
Of course.
This is a pretty big deal.
What about the Unknown? Was that also a thing there?
They did not say that going into it, but Unknown was common. He's the hardest Pokemon to find in the game.
Okay.
Does not spawn anywhere. There's no nests, anything like that. It's just the odds of him popping up are probably like 1 in, a million or something like that. I'm not even exaggerating.
Wait, but people have caught Unknowns.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But, it's the odds of it being there just slim.
There's not a regular place where you can get him. It's just sort of a really small chance per spawn or something like that.
But that night, I was so worried by what was going on because the game kept crashing after every 30 seconds, 40 seconds of being in the app. We couldn't play it anymore. So we went back to the hotel and I was like, Kelly, I got to write a story. So I wrote a story that stability fears hang over Pokemon Go Fest, the day before the festival story.
Yeah.
I wrote it all up and I text Brian Shea. This is Friday night. And I was like, dude, can you look at something for me? Like, I don't know if I'm fear mongering here. I'm a little worried. I'm kind of going out of my way here. And he's like, okay, yeah. And I was like, well, before you do that, let me reach out to Niantic and see if they're doing anything, if they're going to have Wi-Fi or anything like that. So I reached out to PR and they said, oh yeah, we're on top of it. We have cell towers coming in. Service providers are going to amp up their coverage in the area. And I was like, okay, I'm going to squash my story because it kind of reads like fear mongering, right? And it's me just in the park. I talked to people in the park as well that were having similar issues.
Yeah. But the event hasn't properly started, so it's hard
exactly. The next morning I got to the event an hour early. We were let into the park. Press was let into the park an hour early, just kind of set up camp and all that stuff. I'm able to play the game a little, yet it hasn't officially started, but it's still really slow.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple thousand people in line circling the venue. And I was like, okay, well, maybe they haven't turned on the boost yet because it's not really working right now. And it's only going to get worse when more people come into the festival. And sure enough, as soon as the first, 300-400 people came in, it was crashing every 15 seconds. I spawned one stop. I did not catch a Pokemon since the festival started. And if I didn't spin that stop, I wouldn't have been able to scan the QR code needed to kind of unlock the festival bonuses, which is the unknowns and all those unique beasts. A lot of people could not get that thing to spin at all.
So it was a push just to confirm that you were there within the app.
And from there on in, it crashed every 15 seconds or didn't even let me in. And an hour into the festival, people are still rolling in. They're rolling in all the way from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And it maxed out at 20,000, just over 20,000 from what I hear. But nobody could play the game. People on Sprint were kind of getting in.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask. So it's a little bit different for every carrier.
Yep, but it was locking up like you wouldn't believe. And then people said, if you go over in the west corner AT&T Wi-Fi, you can kind of get in. But, once more people migrated that way, once they heard that, then it just shut down again. But an hour into the festival, John Hankey, the CEO of Niantic, took to the stage and they said, the announcing's all enthusiastic, this festival atmosphere.
You be the announcer. The three of us will be the crowd.
All right, now welcome John Hankey. So yeah, he comes out to booze,
Good
like
role
a
playing, everybody.
loud roar of booze, and he's just like, "Hey, welcome to Chicago, everyone." More booing. He kind of looks down at his feet and his cue cards, and you could tell he's kind of like, "Oh man, this is happening." And then I don't know what he's thinking. He's like, "Hey, there's sunshine. Let's give it up for sunshine," or something like that.
What can we possibly applaud that will get the crowd behind us?
And some people mockingly were like, "Yeah," but then at that point, the chant of "Fix the game" started. And I captured footage of that, and that went on for a bit, and people just screaming they can't play, middle fingers being flashed. And then he's kind of like, "I heard you can't get in. We're working on it." At that point, I was supposed to have an interview a half hour later. That got pushed back to 2. That never happened because they never stabilized the game. The next thing that ended up happening is another person from Niantic took the stage and said that they're going to give everybody a refund and $100 of in-game coins.
Now, looking at the video, he also said, "We've narrowed it to 3 major problems."
That's right. It was, what was it? Service,
Yeah.
crash bugs, and authentication errors.
So 2 were on Niantic.
That's the whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the whole game, basically.
Also, programming, graphics, and Pokemon.
turns out
General
Pokemon was a big problem.
gameplay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we knew in the press area, like, because there was press Wi-Fi. So that was the only Wi-Fi in the
really?
whole park. So we knew, like, we got on that Wi-Fi, we could do our work and everything, but the game just kept crashing. So on their end, their servers were just getting crushed. So there was no way that thing was coming back up. We knew that. And they eventually realized, like, this is going to turn into a riot. And we're, like, looking out, like, anybody see a police officer anywhere? And it was, like, just security, like arena security in purple shirts, maybe 4 of them I counted.
Oh. Wait, I think there's one
20,000
over there.
people.
Oh, that's Officer Jenny cosplay. That doesn't count.
And
Okay.
here's the other thing about this festival. There was nothing to do outside of catch Pokemon, which is the main draw, right? If it worked, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But they had tents set up for each of the 3 teams with concessions and an area to sit, but that could fit maybe 100, 200 in there.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is just you're out in the scorching heat. There was no, like, the store had barely anything in it. A shirt for each team, that little Pokewalker device.
Yeah.
Nothing really to buy. No toys, no stuffed animals, nothing like that. Like that and alone, I was like shocked by. I was like, man, that's a blown opportunity for them. They could have made bank here. And then food trucks for, maybe that would better be suited for like 200 people, not 20,000.
Holy God. It is just like a year. Look, I was really captivated by Pokemon Go last year. The fact that we're in a year in, there's still no one-to-one battles, no trading, for the love of Christ. It is unforgivably shitty.
Yeah.
And the
it's
idea
terrible.
to cap off this 1-year celebration with 20,000 people, come on down, and just one of the biggest whiffs in convention history. Like, I mean, I don't know.
But
is.
also
It
consistent with what people expect from Pokemon Go, which is just basic non-functionality.
Yeah, in my tenure, I put this next to like the N-Gage press conference where they had the woman come out and lift up her shirt with the price point for the N-Gage on her chest.
Yikes.
That was like, that's where this is sitting for me. And the last thing they did, knowing like this is going to get super ugly, is someone at Niantic wisely said, you know what, we can expand the range of the bonuses that are tied to the festival. So they did that. They did a 2-mile radius in Chicago.
So you could spread out.
So everybody could spread out and actually play the game. But at any given time, if someone went to a gym for a raid of one of the legendary bosses, which they just unleashed, they said, since nobody could catch anything, so that whole event never took place, the game would crash again. Like if there was like 50 to 100 people in an area, it was like, good luck unless you're on Sprint. It was kind of the atmosphere there. But also spreading out 2 miles in Chicago, you got to be careful. Like
it's a hell of a convention. Let's all just spread out throughout the city and convention.
And people are looking at their phones. People are looking at their phones. The streets are busy. It's like, I hope everybody was safe, but that was their solution, was originally come together. Then it was disperse.
Joe, as a fan of just laughing at people and feeling a good I don't know, Schadenfreude and whatnot, have you watched that cringe cut that's on YouTube yet of this festival and the highlights?
No.
There's a 6-minute video or so that when John Hankey from Niantic walks out on stage, that's one of the roughest things honestly, I think I've ever seen in the game industry. Like, just the look on his face, with a sea of 20,000 people booing him and just feeling that, this is on us.
He came out, his smile, like, he was like, this is it. This is the big crowning achievement at Pokemon Go. And in a step is just like, oh my God, this is the worst thing. I shouldn't be out here.
It honestly sounds like a money laundering scheme, honestly.
I don't know what's happening. How do you account for this, Reiner?
I don't know. I mean, they can never do this again. The game is not built for it. It at this point, it isn't. That they have this grand vision for this, right? Like, this is what we want our game to be, but their tech is just not there. And it's very clear.
They've had a year. They shouldn't have released it last year to begin with.
It took them 6 months to somewhat stabilize just that base experience. For them to think they could pull this off, I don't know who's not talking to the programming team in the decision-making area. Like, there is some lack of communication going on here.
I think they have just too much money shoved in their ears so they can't hear the programming team saying, everything's on fire, stop.
But shame on them for not doing the proper testing of any kind, because I talked to a family from Los Angeles. I wanted to get a picture of them for GI Spy for the magazine.
Yeah.
Because they were all decked out in Mystic gear and they were cute as all get out. This family of 5 flew in from Los Angeles, spent thousands of dollars. They loved this game like nobody's business. Crushed. Absolutely crushed by what was going on. They probably enjoyed the last bit of it over the next couple of days, being able to go out in Chicago and experience the game.
Yeah.
But I mean, just having that family go around Chicago, I'd be worried, just like keeping tabs on everyone. Whereas the festival is kind of a safe environment where everybody's together.
Yeah.
But at least they were able probably to get their rewards and all that stuff.
Well, and at least $100 of in-game currency.
And it should have been, that should have been 1,000. That should have been 1,000.
Why not?
It's fake money for Niantic. 100 is nothing.
I bet they do it again next year.
It's Monopoly money.
Do you think that they're going to do it again next year?
Oh, they will. Because the press release they sent out right afterwards was like, hey, we fixed all the technical problems. It's like, no, you didn't.
They're going to do it again next year, and it is going to be just as bad.
Unforgivable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as a gamer, it was terrible to go to, but as a journalist, it was like, oh my God, this is an amazing story to tell.
Yeah.
Because it is just a disaster.
And you wrote about it for the upcoming issue.
I did. Yeah, I got a nice little write-up in there.
Oh my gosh. Anyways, back to our first date. That was like a crazy guy walking by our table, and we have to talk to him for a while before we can get back to the one-on-one business here, Imran.
That was like the appetizer. You don't have to be like, should we order an appetizer?
Sorry, that went on way too long.
No, I loved it. It's a nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
Hey, where are you from, Imran?
I was born in Tennessee, lived in Georgia for most of my life, and moved to California about 2 years ago.
2 years ago. What brought you out there?
Nothing really. Just decided I needed a change, so sold all my stuff and moved over.
Better than Georgia.
Yeah.
Based on nothing, you decided to just sell all your stuff and
Not
move to
all
California?
of my stuff. I kept all my video game systems. But
Okay.
Yeah, rest of it.
Nice. How'd you find the Game Informer job opening? How'd that process go?
JV Gwaltney told me, I saw him tweeting about it.
Right.
Yes. And I tweeted him, I was like, hey, JV, do you think I'm a good fit for this? He's like, yes, just go ahead and try. What could you lose? Like, all right, sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
Did not think I would actually get it, yet I apparently fooled Reiner enough to get in here. So
congratulations.
Now I'm stuck.
There we go.
Yeah.
How'd you know JV?
We both wrote for Paste, so we talk a lot on Twitter.
Oh, perfect.
Yes.
Really get up on that mic, Imran. More than you think.
Okay.
You have to be so much closer than you think.
This kid knows everything about games, though. Like,
Jojo, quiz him.
Yeah.
Come on, go.
No, I'm not doing this.
Damn it. His knowledge
base, it's impressive. And he plays, like, everything new. Like, he's on top of it. And I can't wait to see what he does with our news.
Very exciting. So, news people, they tend to be more in love with the industry side of things, maybe, than the game-specific side of things. Where do you fall on loving the industry versus loving games? Is it fair to differentiate those?
I mean, I love the drama of the industry more than anything, really.
Yeah.
But, like, I've fallen in love with games a long time ago, and that's pretty much what I've been doing the rest of my life, was playing games. And then, so what I like to do is when I finish a game, I immediately go online. I go, like, what are people talking about this? Then that eventually translates to, how well did this thing sell?
Yeah.
Then I track that sort of thing, and I end up listening to way more financial calls than someone who doesn't actually write about those things should do.
Wait. You listen to financial calls just for fun?
Yes.
That's all you needed to say, and we would have hired you.
Yeah, that's all he did, and I hung up.
Didn't even say hired. It's
I was just like, I found him!
Why? What do you get out of it?
Interesting things. I love the Ubisoft calls, because Izugimo always says, he says more than he should. So he's always telling, oh yeah, we don't really know what we're going to do with the Division until Division 2. Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Division 2 coming, says Izugimo.
What about the Nintendo stuff? Or does like do the Japanese calls drive you nuts because you're waiting for like fan translations of
I
all these
love
investor
reading
calls?
the investor conferences for Nintendo stuff because, like, when Iwata was president, and including too when Kimishima is, there are always investors that don't know anything about Nintendo.
Yeah.
And they love to ask questions. Like, there was one a couple of years ago. It was like, I don't know anything about video games. I chose this company because the number was the same as my birthday. What do you guys actually do? And Iwata was like, we make video games. It's like, oh, cool. All right.
Really?
Yes.
Why take up time with that? You little upstart Nintendo. What is this company all about?
That's kind of
It is
amazing.
fantastic.
Wow. All right. Well, again, these questions are really going to get to the soul of you. I think this one is directed at you specifically. Brady Easter writes in and says, the first boss fight in Deus Ex Human Revolution against Bear was one of the easiest bosses ever. You belabored the difficulty spike for the fight during the game club, and I simply cannot stand it.
Are we talking about Human Revolution, the re-release, or the original? Because they're different.
Oh, great point. I assume he's talking about
See,
the
he knows
original.
everything.
This is an email addressing our game club from, it feels like 16 years ago.
Yeah,
when we
was-
talked about Deus Ex Human Revolution with Joe Juba. on
Oh
that
yeah,
line.
that's right. That's
Yeah,
right.
there we go. Apparently that was easy. All right, sorry. Anyways, here's a better one for you, Imran. Chris from Houston. Go Astros, he says. Indeed. He says, my question today is a simple one. Do you think your current all-time favorite game can ever be dethroned? Or is it on a pedestal so high due to nostalgia and countless hours played that no other game could ever compete? As a quick example, my favorite game is Super Metroid, even though there have been arguably better games made in the series, such as Prime and Fusion. It'll always be Super for me. So this is a good opportunity. Favorite game of all time?
Probably Mega Man X. I do not think that it can be dethroned because there are better games than Mega Man X, but nothing's ever going to be that first time I played that game. Like, once I learned to love and master that game,
Yeah.
like,
Robot
why,
Master.
like, what if Mega Man X2 or 3 or 4 are better, like, I, the Beholder, whatever, it's not going to be the same as going through that first stage, getting rescued by Zero and all. Like, that's what defined my childhood.
If I've never played that game, is there any world where it would hold up to play now?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's a very good action game. It's just a dead simple one.
You should play Maverick Hunter X on PSP.
I don't like that as much.
What is that all about?
It is a top-down remake for the polygonal graphics, voice acting, cutscenes, all that stuff. They changed a couple of things around, like they moved around a couple of items that I think are for the worse. Supposedly, what I've heard in the past that they were planning to remake the entire series that way, and that game didn't sell well enough. So, like, as it's on its own, it's like a pretty decent thing. But I played the SNES game before you played that.
Yeah.
because I think it's more well thought out.
See, you also get to play as the villain in the PSP one, though. You get to
That's
play
true.
as,
You play
as
as
Vile, which he has a different gameplay style, and it's cool.
That's cool.
I like them. It's kind of like the different. For me, it's the difference between like frozen pizza and like gourmet pizza or something. It's like they're both technically pizza, but you're just in them when you want one. You're in the mood for that thing. They're
Was you're saying if you're hungry for pizza and you wanted frozen pizza and I delivered...
I'm saying no one says I'm hungry for pizza. Maybe I want gourmet pizza or maybe I want frozen pizza. It's
Right.
you're either hungry for frozen pizza or real pizza. Those really aren't the same.
This analogy's
They're
fine.
I've never said that.
Okay, whatever.
No one's ever said I'm hungry for frozen pizza.
Oh, I do.
Straight out of the freezer, Juba style.
I love it.
Party pizzas.
Look, it's great, but...
Oh no, I mean I cook it first though.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
That's your own.
I don't want Juba style to be just eating.
Sucking on ice pizza?
just go into a restaurant and say, like, I want Juba style, and just see what they do.
Yeah. I do that a lot. It's confusing.
They're gonna kick you out of the restaurant. Have you talked to Kyle Hilliard yet about Mega Man X?
I mentioned it to him, and he just kind of patted me on the back. He's
All
like,
right.
yeah, that's a good answer.
That's easier than talking,
Yeah.
but yeah, he's also madly in love with that. That's a good one, and it'll never be dethroned.
Not unless, like,
What about Mega Man Legacy Collection 2? Could that possibly dethrone it?
God, what is on Legacy Collection 2?
I don't
Is
know. I think it
SNES
stops
games?
I think it stops before X. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I think we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about top 100 RPGs, maybe.
Yeah,
Where
maybe.
for me, where it's like my favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy 6/3 on Super Nintendo, and like that I just played that at a time in my life, played that so much that experience is just kind of encased in amber now, and
Right.
like, it's not changing, and nothing is ever going to like be what that was to me at the time.
I see both your points. Like, it is like a life-changing moment, but that could happen again, right? Like, there could be something that completely knocks us off our feet, and when we're just like, oh my God, this is a whole new level. I doubt it'll happen.
Well, when was the last time it was dethroned for you, Ryan? When was the last time the top of the stack changed?
I would, well, I guess, Zelda was the game that was like my moment of like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. Video games are the coolest thing. That's all I want to do. But also Grand Theft Auto, like 3 and Vice City and San Andreas, that really kind of made me go, this is a whole new thing of awesome, right? Like, so I would say those moments do happen, but it's never like that first time where it's just like, holy hell, like I want to just play this over and over and over and over. Or this is all I want to do.
So what is your number one currently? Is it San Andreas?
No, I would say it's still Zelda. I can, like, I always say this, it's like Beatles albums. You can interchange them. Like, they're all amazing for different reasons. So Link to the Past, the original Zelda, Ocarina of Time.
Oh,
Majora's
really?
Mask.
You're just saying Zelda in general.
Yeah, like I just think that series is
Plus,
the
they're all
best.
basically the same game anyway.
Triforce Heroes. How dare you, Joe?
Come on.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, Final Fantasy VII was it for me. That was my Mega Man X, as we talked about a lot in that game club. But then Shadow of the Colossus, it's like, this is everything I want from a game. It's bold, it's unique. So it has to share the spot of like nostalgia included. It's clearly 7. Nostalgia aside, it's got to be Shadow of the Colossus. But then playing Breath of the Wild earlier this year, I remember talking to you about it, Reiner. It's like, this might be about everything that I loved about Shadow of the Colossus, but even more so. But I can't possibly taint it. I can't bring it down off that pedestal.
I mean, context for that sort of thing matters. Like, you could be, if your life is going great, you could enjoy a game way more. If you're, like I had a migraine the first time I played Halo 3, could not play that game for another year. Because every time I played it, I was like, this just reminds me of how bad I felt the first time.
So if you ever have him review a game, Reiner, give him some ibuprofen ahead of time just to make sure he's totally good
Let
to
me
go.
take a nap first.
Yeah, that's safe. Let's see. Kyle Ellis from Danville, Illinois says, question, have we seen the last Halo or Grand Theft Auto for this generation? Interesting, simple question.
Yes.
Like, specifically those series? Or
Yeah, specifically these series. First of all, technically, we haven't seen a Grand Theft Auto for this generation.
Because I think technically this generation's changing next year.
What? Let's get. What are you talking about?
With Xbox One X coming this holiday, and then the rumors of PlayStation 5 hitting next year, I think.
You say PlayStation 5 2018?
Yeah.
No. Can we put money on it right now?
What do you think?
I don't know about
Imran?
2018. I think within...
Announced 2018?
I would say announced 2018.
Yeah.
No way. Maybe announced 2019.
Didn't we talk about this? There was a question about the next generation a couple weeks ago. On
There
the
was,
podcast,
good memory, Joe.
We were all exceedingly skeptical of for sure anything coming out in 2018.
Yeah.
Well, see, the problem is, like, the words next generation mean nothing.
That's exactly
It's
it.
like, is the next iPad model coming out next year? Yeah. It's going to be like that. It's just they'll call it PlayStation 5 because you need to.
but-
Oh, you need to make a clean break.
Yeah.
That's the differentiator.
Well, they're not going to make a clean break. I think it's gonna
You'll
be
be
that.
able to play PlayStation 5 games on your PlayStation 4.
Or vice versa.
PlayStation 5 on PlayStation 4?
Yeah.
My head is spinning. Really?
Yeah.
All right. If you ever want to put money down on this, I would be super down for that.
Sure.
So you're saying they're going to release the next PS4 Pro, except call it PS5?
Yes.
I don't think that's happening.
I don't think that's happening.
I think we've got one more wave of PlayStation 5 is a unique thing. Xbox 2 is a unique thing.
To his question, though, there is a chance Xbox One, like, we will get the next Halo. I mean,
That's
it's
good.
a trilogy, right?
It, right?
So it'll be coming, but
not quite.
Because I swear they said there wouldn't be Halo at E3, but they'll work on it, like show it next year or something like that.
I don't know if anybody from 343 has ever said Halo 6. Have they?
Not out,
Even to loved ones. They've
maybe
never
the next
combined those
No, 'cause
words.
They did that thing where they apologized for Halo 5. And they were like, oh yeah, next game we're going to focus on Master Chief more. So not technically Halo 6, but
that's coming and is going to be playable in like the premier game for Xbox One X, right?
they'll probably want you to play it on Xbox One X and make a really strong case why you should have it on that system and only that system. But as they said, everything, like you're saying, Imran, everything is backwards compatible with the base model, right?
Better with Kinect.
That's our future, is just upgrade.
I'm just laughing at the idea of Microsoft making a strong case for the Xbox One X because they haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
GTA. Is there a chance we don't see a proper GTA release for this entire generation?
We will. 5 sold what? 40 million? 60
Do you think
million?
it's going to make this generation, though?
It'll make the generation however long the generation lasts.
Okay.
It could be like 2 years after the PS5.
Yeah.
But Take-Two and Rockstar leaving that money on the table.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Yeah. I think I could see this cutting it close, but probably releasing on this generation. But who knows how much work's going into Red Dead 2 at this point, how many teams are pulled off to work on that, the online
Bully
world.
2.
Like I said, Red Dead 2.
Uh-huh.
Chris says, hey, informants, with the boom of multi-year MMO shared world games on the market today, would you guys ever consider reviewing titles like Warframe, ESO, and Destiny yearly? Not just for expansions, but overall. I was recently baited back into Warframe after seeing the open world expansion trailer, and it was 1,000 times better than when I played it 4 years ago. UI, gunplay, customization, I couldn't believe that it was so good. So Joe, reviews editor, Reiner, old timer, what do you guys think about, regardless of expansions, just on a yearly basis, reviewing these games?
We want to. It's just man hours to do that it's insane, because as you're saying these games are getting better, they're also getting bigger.
Right.
Yeah. And there are more of them, so like to be able to revisit every like games as service, like you said, there's a boom of them, right? So like to revisit every one of those sort of like games as service every year, it would be daunting. I think that's part one of the answer.
Yep.
I think part two of the answer is also like, I think that we do our best, if not through like a proper scored review, that when a game does go through some drastic overhauls, some like receive some big patches, receive some big expansions, in those cases, we do try to get back, like we do go back to them and report back like, hey, if you weren't playing this before, this has gotten a lot better now. We don't do that with everything, but I feel like that is a good thing for the people who maybe weren't in it at first and are like, oh, this is something that would be accessible to me now. I can go in there. I hear it wasn't great at launch. It's gotten a lot better now.
Right, right. I even would have appreciated like a heads up with like, hey, Halo Master Chief Collection, it's actually playable now. Like, I feel like I never got that official thumbs up. I assume it is, but I just don't know. Oh,
It never got fixed.
really?
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like Joe's saying, it's a case-by-case basis, but you could see on our site, like something like Overwatch. We talk about that every week almost, right? Like, and that's because we're really plugged into that game still. Our readers are plugged into that. Whereas some of these other games of note, we're not playing them, or our community's not really into them. We monitor that stuff.
Yeah.
We'd love to be able to go back to all this stuff, but
there's too much new stuff coming out. You don't have time.
Yeah. Well, and I think another, like, to take Warframe as an example is like who is that review for? If we review Warframe yearly, is that really just for the people who are still playing Warframe and just like are those changes really aimed at like bringing in more people, or is it?
I mean,
just,
that's the goal, I'd imagine. Unless the review has the headline "Warframe," it's good now. Like, I don't know.
Well, no, there's certain points where you see something like an MMO where WoW will be like, "Hey, we got a new jumping on point." It's almost like comic books when they reboot. It's like
for sure.
Games do that. Those continual service games do that, where it's like you could jump in and get a level 40 character right away. You don't even have to play it to get to level 40.
Yeah.
There's those moments where it's kind of this break where, okay, let's see what we can do with this. Joe will be like, hey, so-and-so, go check this out. See if it's worth, us diving back into.
I mean, Final Fantasy XIV gets a new review every year or two because it comes out with a new named expansion.
Yeah. But that's a good example of Joe's case of Dan Tech's been going through that content, and it has taken forever because there's so much there, and it's a real slog. So just the idea of doing that for MMOs alone is mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Speaking of jumping into a series, Joe, I forget why, but recently I went back to our Mass Effect 3 coverage, and I forgot that like one of the talking points on that trip from the marketing standpoint and the PR side of things for BioWare over there was like, it's a great place to jump in. Mass Effect 3, better than ever. The action's great. Come on into the series. It's just the most laughable nonsense now.
I feel like we treated that with skepticism at the time,
it's
even,
very
right?
clear as nonsense. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you'd probably have a fine time. You'd be very confused.
No. I mean, like,
you'd have a good time playing it, though.
Maybe. I mean, so much of that game is contingent on your investment in the previous two games, right? Like, I would not recommend starting there.
Anyways, Dominic, can you help me out, Imran? How do you pronounce that?
Sichoki?
Sichoki? Dominic Sichoki. Welcome. Hey, GI Crew. Dominic from Chicago here. Pokemon Go Fest.
Hey.
I've got a question that's probably more suited to staff members who have been with the magazine for a long time. No offense, Imran. Were there ever any games that were just annoyingly difficult to review? Not like, oh, this game is hard, but more like a particular series or genre of sports games or something similar. Every so often, I fire up one of the World Series of Poker games that came out on PS2 Xbox, and imagine these must have been among the worst to review. They rely on so much luck that trying to play them under crunch time would probably make me insane. What stands out? Just annoying to review.
Boy, yeah, there are lots of stories I think that come out with this. I mean, there are so many different categories of annoying for things when it comes to review. When it's dealing like with a game that could be a great game but just 100 hours long.
Yeah,
like that's not the ideal way to do it. There are things that are like review events. It's annoying to go play a game in like, a few days that isn't really the way that you would prefer to play it. But
sitting in a hotel.
Yeah, for me. The things that take the cake. Oh man, this is really going back.
Please.
There was an old game called Iron Phoenix on, I think it was Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a 16-player like multiplayer arena game. But like, A, it was not very good, and B, almost no one really had heard of it. So it's super annoying to like try and review a game when there is no one playing it, but to have to like try to assess how the multiplayer functions and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because like, I mean, eventually you just don't review it if you can't get matches going. But like if you can't,
especially pre-release for a review, or it's even harder.
Yeah.
Like, well, I hope other journalists are online.
In this case, I'm pretty sure the game was out and people just weren't playing.
Oh God.
So that just gets baffling because really you have to just wrangle a group to even get a basic game up and running.
Ugh.
Anyway, so that's one that stands out to
Yeah,
me.
that sounds like a nightmare.
Any of the old Olympic games where they didn't have tutorials and they're all just like seriously like jamming on the buttons as fast as you can, and each different sport had different mechanics.
Yeah.
And you couldn't really figure it out. Like it was
This is like
trial and
NES
error.
era, or like what are we talking about here?
Super Nintendo through PlayStation, maybe even
Okay.
PlayStation 2.
Not the Mario and Sonic stuff.
No, like they at least told you stuff.
And you're not talking like power pad track and field.
No,
stuff.
but I mean,
Okay.
it is that same stuff, like jamming on the buttons. There was times like I would get that review, like Andy would assign it to me, and I'd go outside like Luke Skywalker on Tatooine and just go look up at the sky for a bit, like, this is it, man. I could be doing what else?
Yeah.
What else could I be doing with my life at this point? Because I'm about to go through hell trying to figure out just how this game plays. So those games were a nightmare.
Do you think it's because like you didn't have the booklet? Because it was just like review copies or something? Okay.
Not having the manual, but even sometimes you would get a printout of the manual and you look at it and it's like, wait, what does this even mean? Like it doesn't make sense because the manuals weren't written well back then.
Yeah.
And also, if your core mechanic is just
Pressing the two buttons. Yeah.
And and even other people in the office, if they got assigned it and you heard it, like you're sitting there typing and everybody's like in a little 10-foot area and you just hear this the whole time. It was awful, awful.
It's
Yeah,
like
so
Serial
those,
playing a fighting game these days. It's just awful to hear.
yeah, I'm so glad that genre's gone. It seems like easy money. Like everybody wants to play Olympic stuff, but please don't bring them back. 'Cause I don't want to play them again.
Whenever you hear that theme song, just go into shock.
I do have an answer for that though. and
Oh,
the answer-
please.
The answer is Monster Hunter. I don't know why I ever take those
Oh.
reviews. I love Monster Hunter quite a bit.
Oh, good.
Reviewing them is terrible though,
Why is that?
because every game ramps up from 0 to 50 over like 50 hours. So to get to the actual part anyone's interested in reading, you have to play so much.
Yeah, and it's just going through the motions. Like,
Yeah.
all right, let's get to the juicy bit.
It's like
get
I
to the
already know how to
interesting
play
bit.
this game. I don't want to do any of this stuff. And thank God recently they've actually been fixing that so you can skip past it.
Yeah.
But it's not been fast enough.
Oh boy, you excited for the new one?
I am excited for I haven't liked a lot of what I've seen, but
Uh-oh.
it's still-
What?
What are you skeptical about? I don't know if you're aware. The dinosaurs eat the other dinosaurs, as Reiner was keeping pointing out.
And regurgitates them
Yeah.
and feeds the young with their body parts.
So that
He's
stuff
a
is
Vor
cool.
fan.
I don't necessarily like the idea of healing while moving. Like
What?
it's one of those things that like it sounds very
Convenient.
convenient and like anti-traditional. So like I like the idea that you have to escape to heal. That you need to get out of the monster's vision and get somewhere else to actually like make yourself in a calm state
But-
and heal.
In the past, you would zone.
Yes.
That is so unbelievable. Now, at least it's like one big region. You have to actually find a hiding spot away from the
I'm not
dinosaur.
saying it's not stupid. I just don't know that I like the new way.
I miss the PS2 days where you had to cut your thumb and make a blood sacrifice to heal on the controller.
Yeah, go back to the old days, eh?
That sounds like a thing Kojima would make.
This is a prototype. God, now that would be the greatest feature of all time. Is just pull Kojima aside and just get the full laydown of every possible prototype game that he was thinking of.
Oh, man.
There was actually a Kickstarter for that blood thing. Now that I think about it,
What?
there was a Kickstarter for a game, like a thing that hooked up to your arm while you're playing games. So then you get hit, it actually draws blood from you.
Oh no!
I'm into like a little bit of a shock thing. I think we all are, but
didn't-
the blood thing.
It didn't actually succeed. But yeah, it was.
How did Kickstarter even let that get up
I
there?
think it got taken off actually.
Okay,
Yeah, that
good.
would make more sense.
Yeah.
What? So would the controller like rumble, and then that would move a needle into your arm? Like on what basis would that
Like
work?
I guess it's like an IV that's just like.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's the worst. IV should never be a peripheral.
Next question.
Good
Next
God.
question.
Travis E has an easy one. Maybe Imran could take it. What game have you replayed the most times?
Somewhere around 130 times with Mega Man X.
130?
Yes, I speedrun that game.
Like legitimately speedrun.
Yes, I'm not like anywhere near as good as the people you see on like AGDQ or anything, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty fast at it.
How fast are you?
I believe I'm at about an hour 15 minutes.
For all, like the whole game, all the robot masters, all that business.
All the robot masters getting the Hadouken because that's how you beat Sigma fast enough.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if you're an exaggerating type. I don't really know you, but 130, really?
Around once a month, probably.
Holy Lord.
I've-
All right.
I played Dark Souls around 10 times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even that's
Not
impressive.
as much as 130, but
Man. For me, it's arcade version of Sunset Riders. What stands out for you
Oh,
guys?
wow.
Replayed through the most. What stands out?
I've probably played that game like 5 or 6 times.
It doesn't take that long.
I actually played it for the first time a couple months ago at like the local barcade here, Up Down. They have,
really?
They have Sunset Riders, and I was like, Ben Hansen's always talking about this. I'm going to play Sunset Riders. It's all right.
It's colorful. Those bullets are very neon and glowing. It's very cool.
Probably Mario 1.
Ah.
Yeah. It was just the point in my life where it's like, this is all I'm going to do this weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, it's got to be some of those old Super Nintendo games. Like I've played Mega Man X a ton. I've played Final Fantasy 3 a ton. F-Zero I've been through a bunch of times.
What does
Like-
"been through" mean for F-Zero though?
Like
yeah.
you play the whole campaign
Okay.
as like different race cars and stuff. Though I was pretty much Samurai Goro the whole time.
Race cars.
I don't know. Hover cars,
Shooter
What are
ships.
Yeah. What are they called?
they?
Probably F-Zeros.
I think F-Zero machines. If I remember
stupid.
Smash Brothers like, well enough.
You sound like you're dead. All right, playing that race car game again, Joe.
I've played Mass Effect 7 like 7 or 8 times.
Oh man, that's
The original?
wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first one.
Let's see. Ryan Langell from West Des Moines, Iowa. Hang on.
Man, we got the Midwest representing.
Or maybe it's Ryan Langell West from Des Moines, Iowa. It's confusing. Anyways, he says, my question for you is, when you look back at your time as a gamer, can you identify examples of a personal gaming evolution? For example, when I got back into gaming 2 years ago, I mainly wanted to play games that were fast-paced with lots of action. The idea of performing recon on an area in a game and performing stealth maneuvers and kills would have bored me to tears. Now, after playing Snake Eater and Peace Walker and Far Cry 3, I relish the chance to perform CQC or take over a camp without sounding an alarm. When was the last time you guys evolved as gamers? Is the core of the question here.
I think when one day a couple of friends and I were just learning, like, we should buy a fight stick and just learn fighting games.
Ooh,
And at that point, I
game.
didn't actually know how fighting games really like. My go-to move in Street Fighter was jumping up as Ryu, strong kick, jumping down or hitting down,
Yeah.
low kick. But I didn't actually know how to do a Hadouken at any point. So
outside of Mega Man X.
outside of Mega Man X,
Okay.
that was I think probably the only move I could do. But we bought the fight sticks and we started to actually learn it.
And you were all starting on the same.
Pretty much
Playing
the
field?
even level.
Okay.
They all gave up at some point, but I really enjoyed it. And I learned I like learning how to get better.
Yeah.
And recent years, as I've gotten older, it's been, oh, my reflexes are bad. And then I found out the EVO winner Takedo is in his mid-30s, so he's older than me. So I can't use that excuse anymore. So now I'm just bad.
What do you do? Do you go on YouTube? How to play fighting games well?
I did some of that, like Maximilian, who works for Yo Video Games. He has a lot of good fighting game tutorials, so I used to read those
Okay.
and watch those. I used to just go on the internet and get beaten up a lot. That's
what it takes.
That's the best way to actually learn fighting games. You have to be okay with losing.
Yeah. I'll be damned. Joe, was for you? Is it that time you tried to play Deus Ex: Human Revolution and then stopped?
No, I've been trying to think about this, and I don't think I have a particular moment, a moment of when one genre sort of opened up to me or not. I mean, it's always sort of been my preferred genre is RPGs, and there are lots of other sort of like I like action games, I like stealth games, I play a lot of different stuff, but
Joe's just stuck in his ways, Imran.
that's also very true. I'm not a big fan of change, so
Bah humbug. Reiner?
When you have godlike skills like I do,
Okay.
you don't really tweak
next
that stuff.
question.
But I will say, when I was way into achievements, I would play games just for achievements, and that was weird, but also kind of cool. Because a lot of times the achievements would make you do things that you normally wouldn't in games.
That's a great answer. Yeah, for sure.
So I did that for a while, but now I like to finish games all the way through to get that final achievement still.
Okay.
But I'm mostly off of I'm going to go out of my way to get these. Like I'll just...
Mostly off.
Well, yeah. I mean, I have my list that I have on the site for the easy ones.
Yeah.
But I won't play a game to get like all 1,000.
But when you put in a game, you'll still check out achievements before you do anything? Or early on?
No, I don't actually.
Wow.
Sometimes it's like one will pop up and I'll be like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I'll want to look at all of them.
Yeah.
Or I'll get one that's like 100 and I'll be like, oh, are they all big points like this?
Yeah.
But otherwise, I usually don't check them.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like there's no genre thing for me like that, but as soon as like achievements and trophies started happening, I've always been a little bit like compulsive. So I would do things for like the 100% in the game, but once that was represented like by trophies and gamer score, I would do it not for the number, but just for that sense of like completion.
Yeah.
I like that.
Mason Cowell from Chattanooga, Tennessee. Woo woo. He says, "Hey GI crew, my question is, what fictional universe would you like to see more of in gaming? I'm excited to see more of the world of Horizon Zero Dawn because the lore of that world is fascinating to me. How about you guys? What fictional world or lore do you feel like hasn't been tapped enough yet?" For me, I gotta go Grim Fandango. It's still like my favorite in-game world, and you really don't get to see too much of it.
So the question isn't just about like what game franchise do you want to see come back, but tied to like that game's world.
Yeah, you just want to know more about that
explore it
world,
more.
that weird tease.
Okay, interesting.
Mega Man X?
There's been enough.
Okay.
Probably don't need any more. I played X7 and X8 was actually decent.
Yeah.
7 was just a trash fire.
Are you a Mega Man fan outside of X?
Yeah, I play most of the main series. I think I didn't play the PS1 game. That might be the only blind spot I've got.
Okay, you played
all the
Jesus
GBA
Christ.
games,
Legends,
all the
right?
Yes.
Okay.
I bought that on PSN recently.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Before Ubisoft completely destroyed Assassin's Creed's future storyline, which also went all the way back to the first Civilization, I want to see that first Civilization. I want that to be a full game because it looked more advanced than anything we have today, like total state-of-the-art sci-fi craziness.
Yeah.
But millions of years ago or
That'd
whatever.
be tough to pull off just from messaging of like Assassin's Creed, that historical series. This one, it's a bunch of see-through, towers and nonsense you can't wrap your mind around.
People in naked suits running
yeah,
around.
you're into
apparently.
this, right?
This one's probably happening, but like, I was really sold by the world specifically in Bloodborne.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like the whole Dark Souls thing never really did it for me, but when you add in that sort of like Lovecraftian angle, I want to see more of that.
Yeah, more Lovecraft stuff in general as like a art angle would be amazing in games.
You don't think it's being done too much?
No, especially not in like the big releases. Like I want a Lovecraftian Final Fantasy or something like that. Like go completely dark bonkers with a main series. I think that'd be awesome.
This is kind of a weird answer, but I recently played The Surge, and like that game doesn't really live up to its potential that much. Like it gets better, but it's the idea of like a Dark Souls sci-fi thing that needs to get more like expanded on more, and it kind of cuts off before it really gets there.
Okay, so Dark Souls, Mega Man X. You're like fighting as you're like Twitch gaming.
I like a lot of action games. Yeah,
action games in general. That's your thing.
That's my main thing. Yeah, but I sit down with RPGs for 100 hours every so often. Like at some point, I'm gonna finish Persona 5. It'll happen. It just whether it happens this year or next, who knows?
We'll all be old, man. Yeah, it probably won't happen. Is there any genre that you don't like?
Nothing I can think of off the top of my head. Like I've never been huge into sports games, but I'll play them. I enjoy them.
Okay. And do you have any siblings?
Yes, I have an older brother.
Okay, great. Chris says, I was wondering if buying a PS Vita and or a 2DS XL or whatever the new one is called would be worth it if I've never owned either. He owns all the consoles. He's just wondering about handhelds. Is it worth buying one of those handhelds now?
Nah.
I think a 3DS is fine.
I think it'd be great to have for
most
sure.
of that library is never going to get ported over.
Yeah, for
Wait.
sure. Especially if you've never played if you've never owned a DS either, and you have that entire back catalog as well. Like, there's a lot of great games you can play on that.
Reiner's saying no. I'm curious about this.
Nah, just get a Switch.
He already has one.
Yeah, that's all you need.
There's like
I
4
mean,
games.
all that stuff's gonna come.
I think a
forward.
Switch is a good replacement for a Vita, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Vita, like mechanics and the ergonomics of it and the screen, but the 3DS, man, like, I'm so glad the Switch exists now. Like, I look back at the 3DS and it looks like a relic. Like that screen and the double screen.
But that battery
the
life
3D
is nothing to
Switch-
scoff at.
No, I like the battery, but at the same time, like, man, Switch is where it's at.
Yeah.
You're in a good place.
It's very hard to go back from the Switch to the 3DS and like look at that screen.
Yeah.
so,
But like on the other hand, like I really like Kid Icarus and games like that. So are they ever going to port that somewhere? And if they
Right.
don't, then that's the only place to
I
play.
would hang on to that hope. Like that stuff might come. There's a big influx of games coming. There's a good chance a lot of the old stuffs are going to come forward.
I don't know, man.
Any discussion of like that this happens like when there's a new console generation, like any discussion of should I buy a console always comes down to like what do you want to play?
Yeah.
Do you want to play like if you're really into like JRPGs, the Vita is a great system to have.
Especially PS1 stuff going back.
Yeah. But like if you're into the sort of like, I mean, Nintendo has some great first party stuff. They have a lot of unique stuff on the 3DS. So
Portable Chrono Trigger.
yeah, like if you want that stuff, yeah, 3DS is great. But like don't buy them just for the sake of like having a handheld.
He says he's only interested in Neo Geo fighting games.
Oh,
So that's why he loves the Switch so much, which is the premier stop for all these games I've never heard of. It's fantastic.
There is more Neo Geo stuff still on that thing
It's
than
still just
Nintendo.
Has anybody? Can we reach out to Mr. and Mrs. Neo and Geo just to find out what the hell is going on there? It's flooding the store.
it feels like there's some sort of loophole, right?
Yeah.
That like Neo Geo found some way to accidentally upload all of its stuff, and Nintendo has like people being like, "How do we stop?" Like it's an invading virus.
And Geo marketing's just like, just play cool, pretend like we all want it on the store. We're happy to have what is it? Mark of the Wolves? Yeah, classic. It's right at home on the Switch.
It's like the flood insurance commercials where the water just slowly rising and everyone's just looking casual. Like, yeah, I don't notice it. It's fine.
Until they just have to release the Neo Geo skin version of the Switch. It just fully consumes it, eats it from the inside out.
But I mean, do you think they're going to stop, or do you think it's going to be the full Neo Geo catalog?
I mean, it's Hamster, right? They're the ones who are putting it out.
Yeah,
so,
I think
like,
so.
They've been putting stuff out on the PS4 since 2012.
I'd say, Imran, they're breeding like hamsters.
There you go.
Anyways, Nathan K. Oh, no, don't. Stay. Nathan K. writes in and says, hello, GI team. Because so many games now incorporate RPG elements into their gameplay, I've been trying to come up with a set of subgenres. As a test, could you give some examples of favorites from the following? Or just critique the way that he's categorizing these subgenres for RPG.
Okay.
Number 1, loot RPG is how he's defining it.
Diablo, I guess.
There we go. These tend to put more emphasis on upgrading equipment and raising stats rather than focus on story and characters. See Diablo, Dissidia, Heroes of Might and Magic.
Dissidia. I don't know about that.
The City's a fighting game.
It's a quote-unquote fighting game, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's more fighting game than RPG.
I wonder if
Yes.
he's thinking of something else.
Hmm.
Dissidia. Anyways, story RPG is his second category, aka the JRPG. These rely on stories to keep the players engaged rather than on collections. You will most likely see a yes-no loop at some point. See Chrono Trigger, South Park, Parasite Eve. Then the third category, player RPG. While these emphasize story, they focus less on a team of adventurers and more on the player character. A dialogue or morality system is required for this category, as the player provides the hero's personality. Usually this system has a direct effect on the story. See Knights of the Old Republic, Persona 4, Suikoden 5, Growlancer, Generations? I've never heard of that. And then he says, other than strategy RPGs, what am I missing? And do we accept this division between story RPG and player RPG?
I don't like
No.
the way
I
he's
don't like player
organizing
RPG.
this. It's like Earth
No.
2 or 3. Like, go back to that universe.
I think player RPGs too are specific. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the description of that genre counts stuff like Dark Souls, but then he adds morality into it. Like, that's not a thing there.
Yeah, and it's a weird... I like how he's mixing up, even though he calls one the JRPG, and one kind of seems like the Western RPG, but then he flips it around and throws
Yeah.
other examples in there.
Yeah. How is
interesting
Persona
thought.
4 not a story RPG?
Right. Well, okay, so what are the accepted? Nathan, God bless you. Thank you for writing in. But what is the group's here consensus for subgenres within RPG genre?
I think his first one is on point
Yeah.
of the Diablos, the loot driven kind of stuff. The
Okay.
those kind of fit
So
into their
loot
own
hunts.
camp.
Do we accept just the broad JRPG?
Yeah, I
as a
mean that's
subgenre?
a known.
Mhm.
It's its own thing, right?
Okay.
There could be Western games that are designed just like that fit perfectly with those too. Though.
Okay.
That's the
Yeah.
problem, right?
Strategy RPG. We accept.
Like
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah. Disgaea, those
and,
kinds of things.
And then what? Open world RPG.
Well, you're
Sim
starting to
RPG?
see like bleed with open world into everything, right?
Right,
Like
yeah.
so that's kind of
Because some of this stuff isn't necessarily genre differences. Is it like it's a design decision? Like this is the game we're going to make. It's not just this is a subgenre of RPGs and we're going to fit into that mold.
Yeah.
And like it also gets weird to draw the line then because like okay, mechanically when you're talking about it, how much of a difference is there between like let's say Skyrim and The Witcher, and then from that jump, how much of a difference is there between Witcher and Legend of Zelda, and are those all the same thing? You know, like that gets a little weird.
let's just call it the F it RPG umbrella, and everything else.
The
is
good
under it.
genre.
Yeah.
I think there's also a debate whether or not this emerging like immersive sim category counts as an RPG. It's got a lot of like progression and exploration elements in there.
Yeah. What about those guys?
Action RPG like Yakuza,
Confusing.
Dark Souls, I think is action RPG.
Well, let's keep this genre thing rolling here with Justin Small from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hello, my name is Justin, he says. Not sure what info you want about me, but I started listening about 2 months ago and will be forever now.
Wow.
but what's your last name?
Stalker?
Small.
Oh, well then there you go.
Question. What genre or type of games do you think defines this generation? For instance, last generation might be defined by online shooters. Maybe Color D4 kicked that off. Simple question. Is there a genre that defines the generation so far?
I don't know if it's a genre, but more ongoing services.
I think just the live game template.
Yeah, live game.
Yeah.
That's totally it.
Oh, there you go. Hope you enjoyed that, Justin. Thank you so much. Let's see. What's Imran? What's the hardest you've ever laughed?
Hardest I've ever laughed.
Yeah.
I once saw in college, I saw a friend fall into a pile of ice and then like fall deeper in because there was another pile of ice underneath it.
And then he
ice.
died.
Yeah. Well,
Is this
snow and
snow?
ice, snow and ice.
Okay.
And then like
so it's like a crusty outer layer?
crusty outer layer, and like he's like, okay, I'm fine, and then fell deeper.
That's good.
And because I was 18, I laughed really hard.
How deep
Yeah.
did he
I'd-
get?
I'd
Was it
still
like
laugh at that.
was he like stuck in it like up to his waist?
Yeah, it was like
Oh, that's
it
great.
was reverse snow angel.
Yeah, okay.
That's good. That's really good. Jordan Blaney from Omaha, Nebraska writes in and says, Dear GI crew, whatever happened to Stardew Valley on the Switch? This was the game I was most looking forward to from the Nintendo Indie Showcase, but we haven't heard anything in a while.
Canceled.
I don't think it's canceled. It's really weird that Nintendo hasn't said anything about indies at all since that Nindy showcase like in March.
They've been rolling out a fair amount in
There's
that
like
online
one every
store.
week, but they haven't done any promotion. Like
As long as it's a Neo Geo indie, they're
Yeah,
right
you
on it.
you don't need those when you got those Neo Geo fighting games. You don't need Stardew Valley or Golf Story. Now.
But it's like usually they used to have an indie direct every couple of months.
Yeah.
And this year it's just been nothing, and not even anything at E3. Like Treehouse previous years used to be, let's have indie developers come up and like show their game off, and this year they did repeats of Nintendo games instead of that. So I've been very curious what they're doing with that because Stardew Valley, like the multiplayer, is supposed to launch on Switch.
Well, that's what they said, but it's complete BS. Because then Eric Baroni and Chucklefish were like, "That's not true. It's coming to PC as well." Like they just completely took that marketing bullet point. And it's completely wrong. It's nonsense. But I looked into this. Apparently, they said it's coming soon in some classification, some category. They said coming soon, and then they just changed it to generic coming 2017.
Huh.
So people read into that like, "Oh, it's in trouble. It's in trouble."
Canceled.
I mean, it could definitely be in trouble. Like
But yeah.
that's definitely
Hey,
a
let's
possibility.
post a it's canceled story, news guy. And then
They
they
can
will write back
confirm.
like, whoa. No, it's not. Here's when it's coming. That's how you get the scoop.
Yeah, hot scoop. Here we go.
We can fake news it up. Wait, can we make a fake news tag?
Yeah, we could.
Okay, awesome.
Is this all right? Sure. New direction. That's having that on the Switch, having it mobile.
Oh,
yeah, no, I've been
man.
waiting for that word.
Joe, are you gonna play it again?
I'm not going to play it again.
Having it like on a plane though.
It would be nice, but like I have like 90 hours invested in that game. I'm not going to start over. You know,
He got blueberries, man.
Yeah,
You know what?
loves this blueberry.
Have
I
they
love
talked,
them. Blueberries is the best crop.
All right, relax,
Hey.
relax.
Have they talked about the co-op stuff yet? Or the multiplayer, whatever that is?
Yeah. They've outlined it a little bit. Yes,
What
so
is
it's like Animal Crossing, where it's like 4 houses, so it'd be like
Oh
4
my
farms.
God.
I'm just confused about a lot of details about that. Like,
But it's all a shared world? Like we're all
yeah.
neighbors?
So someone plays more, wouldn't that advance the clock? I don't understand the
Oh,
basics
man.
of how it would work. Like, can you steal another person's lover?
Or their crops? Or their blueberries?
All right, Joe. All right.
Jojuma, blueberry bandit.
Blueberries, Joe's waifu. Cameron Salardo says, "Hey, GI crew, Cameron from Arizona, writing what?" I don't know if I edited this incorrectly, but that really makes me laugh. Cameron from Arizona writing, "What is a prequel game that makes you cry at the end, even though you know what's going to happen already?" Mine, and I'll just probably not, this is probably going to steal Joe's answer. Mine is Crisis Core, because everyone knows Zack dies, but damn, Crisis Core did such a good job developing him, so the ending hurts.
That is a good ending, yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer.
I would probably say Yakuza 0. I mean, that's a recent one, but like it actually ends up having a very good ending that more or less explains where all the characters end up in Yakuza 1.
Is it emotional?
I would say it's pretty emotional. It's one of those Metal Gear style endings where it like will fade to black and then come back for another thing.
You hear a bullet fire.
I should point out, we don't want to spoil too much about that right now because people will see what happens with if they haven't played Yakuza yet and are waiting. Yakuza Kiwami is coming out
next month.
And Kiwami is the remake of the first one?
Yeah.
Man, I'm glad that Yakuza 0 found that wider audience, but that is tough to keep track of all those games.
I mean, both games in 1 year might be excessive, and Yakuza 6 I think is next February or so.
Oh my God. You can't stop them. Reiners, one stand up for you, the prequel game.
I don't know.
What about God of War Ascension? Did that really do it for you guys?
I mean, those are kind of interesting in that you know how that whole thing ends, yet you're still going through the paces, yet you know it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, those are
in the bigger
examples.
picture.
Yeah, those games I think are examples of how not to handle that stuff because like they zero in on time frames of Kratos' life that you just like don't really care about or
there's no stakes.
Yeah,
Right.
Like I think another example besides Crisis Core for me is like MGS3.
That's a great one.
Metal Gear Solid
that's,
3,
of
where
course,
it's
pretty
like
cool.
because you know Big Boss becomes a villain and then you
Yeah.
see him being introduced as a good guy and it just invites all of this sort of speculation that eventually we got answers to.
But then he kind of ruins that with Portable Ops.
Yeah, I mean they're different regardless of what happens afterward though. Like as an isolated entity, MGS3 is.
Yes.
When does he already
Great.
become a demon is the real question. Yeah. This made me think of a weird one. Because I was thinking about Rogue One. I was like, emotionally, Rogue One really didn't do it for me. But what does it for me is working backwards, thinking about Force Awakens. I'm going to spoil Force Awakens here, for the love of Christ. It's when Han dies, like even that scene, I don't know what it is. It didn't hit me that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Rainer, I don't know if in theaters, I was sitting next to you. I don't remember you getting too choked up or anything. But what gets to me then...
I fell into a deep coma at that point. I didn't see the rest of the movie.
No. What gets me is thinking about Han's death in Force Awakens and then just rewinding it and thinking about like them sitting at the table in A New Hope. And thinking about that scene makes me emotional. It's like, if they just wouldn't have found him, he wouldn't have ended up getting murdered on this snow planet. If he just would have found some other pilot for that ship, just going back to the coincidental origins will always get me.
Well, yeah, but then, he never would have met the love of his life. And,
Well, they had a rocky relationship.
Well,
at best.
yeah, but who's to say that...
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you mean Chewbacca? Then
never mind. Okay.
Yeah, I guess, look, he had some good times. But
I feel like you're passing judgment on the man's life is all I'm saying.
it had a sad end. It had a sad, abrupt,
did.
probably
It did.
really
Hey,
painful end.
Hanson, everyone's got a sad end waiting for him.
Yeah, we don't get a lightsaber in the
Yeah,
gut.
it's like one of your dogs killing you, dude.
Yeah.
That's awful. His son took him down.
Look, even if one of my dogs killed me tomorrow, you guys could rest assured that I feel like I've had a pretty good run up.
Do you hear that, dogs? Are you listening?
Yeah,
Please
Franklin.
don't murder me, dogs.
The only one in that series who's ever gotten to like pass away is Yoda.
Oh wow.
Oh, like peacefully?
Yeah.
Hang on. The guy's arm in the bar.
He might have survived.
Yeah, he survived.
There's got to be someone else. I guess it doesn't make for a good.
Not very good drama. No.
Yeah. Now I'll quietly die in the background.
Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru were probably. I mean,
Oh boy.
I hear that they peacefully died in their sleep before they were
Then they
burned
burned
alive.
again.
They died doing what they loved, screaming for mercy.
Oh no!
Ryder, somebody else has to have died in peace.
R5 when he was just wheeling out to. I guess that was like a heart attack for a droid,
Yeah.
right? Like he blew a gasket.
I bet
or whatever.
Jango Fett. I bet his death was more peaceful than we think. Just like the good, clean decapitation, just quietly
He's like,
drifting
am
off.
I on a roller coaster?
I bet he
Oh,
didn't
no,
feel
I'm
any
dead."
pain. I bet he didn't feel any pain. Anyway, Carrie Brown has a simple question to close things out. So I just beat Inside for the first time. I got one question. What in the world?
I like that question.
I think that is the question everyone had upon finishing Inside.
Without spoiling anything, I think the only way you can answer is just like, why not? Let's go for it.
Yeah.
This would be fun. Do that thing.
The thing I like about Inside, though, is like you knew from the first moments of playing the game something was off, right?
Mhm.
And they really played that up in a big way at the end. Like, not only like revealing what was really going on, but even keeping that theme of just like, what the hell? Like his
It's
question.
true. I guess the first time you see something disturbing in that game, it just carries that tone.
Or you just look at the background, you see something happening, and you're like, what is happening here?
But I think there's also a line to draw between I just finished Inside and what the hell? Like the final moments of Inside and the final 15 minutes of Inside, I think are...
Yeah, I assume he just means the final 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, okay. Because
the final moment, if you want to narrow it down...
It's especially what the... Like, I don't know. The final moment for me was especially like...
Sure, I guess
know.
this is tonally fitting.
Yeah.
It's fun on the beach. What?
Yeah.
I
I just
got it.
remember Fun on the Beach. Then the classic music plays over the credits, Fun on the Beach.
To some extent, I feel like that game is way different if you played and finished Limbo and like you come into that Inside thinking like, okay, well that's weird and disturbing, but that's what this company does.
Yeah.
And then it actually starts building up more and more, and you start questioning more of it. Like Inside to me is one of those games that if you've played the previous game, you're going into it with more expectations of wanting to not be fooled. And I think it gave me a different experience. Like I'd be very curious to find out like what that game is like without having ever played Limbo.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't finish Limbo, but played Inside and loved it. But anyways, you have to choose your favorite email, Imran. I'm sorry.
What was the one about Han Solo?
I don't think anybody asked about Han Solo.
You win, Ben. Or Imran.
I'm gonna go with the guy who said he to ask us, or for us to ask him what more we want to know, because that is very helpful.
That is interesting.
I'm glad that email people are like assuming this is going to be a reciprocal relationship.
Here's the problem though. That was Justin Small, but his was the least discussed what genre defines a generation, where we said live games and then basically moved on.
No, see, that's fine. A good, easy question.
Yeah.
Very breezy. He knows what he's doing.
I'll be damned. All right, the Hemingway of podcast@gameinformer.com. There we go.
Joe also insulted him,
Battleground,
so
never
we
sold.
better give him some.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Justin Small from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We'll ship you out something real nice. Thank you so much. And if you want to have us talk about something, send an email to podcast@gameinformer.com. Could be a news story, whatever you like. A question, if you want to, I don't know, if you want to offer feedback, anything at all. So
if you can think of a Star Wars character that died peacefully within the main continuity and in that expanded universe crap.
Prequels are fine too, and no, Padme doesn't count.
That's true.
Yeah, I know,
that's
that's
right.
not peaceful.
All right, anyways, coming up next, we have an interview with Greg Kasavin from Supergiant Games, so stay tuned for that. Greg Kasavin, welcome to the Game Informer Show, sir.
Hey, how's it going?
Really good. It's an honor to have you. I know it's a busy time for you guys. You just launched Pyre, for Christ's sake.
Yes, it's been 24 hours exactly, or no, I guess 25 hours exactly. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind. The time immediately after launching a video game is a precious time that I have not experienced very often, seeing as they take a while to make in the first place.
So from the outside point of view, we see you and the official Supergiant Games account on Twitter saying thanks to a lot of people on Twitter. But what is it like internally? What is it like to launch a game from Supergiant's perspective?
It's it's funny. It's almost a little bit. I think like there's something sad about it, because like you want to believe that it's this big like hooray, like our game is out, and but the reality is we're like monitoring the situation so closely. It's like this. You've got this very war room kind of feel to it, because. Particularly since our game is both on PC and PlayStation 4 on PC and console. When it comes to computer games, there's just a lot of variables. People have all kinds of weird computers and setups and everything, and we could test the game for 2 years, and we did. And nevertheless, people are just going to run into weird issues that no matter how much testing you did, you're not going to know for sure. So the only thing we could do is just sort of like brace for impact, hope that a lot of people, enthusiastically pick up the game, but the more people who get it, the more those kind of weird little issues are going to come up. So we're just really focused on making sure that anyone who does run into any issues that we help them get past those. And even though it's like 1% or even less of however many people are actually like picking up the game, those are the people we care about the most, because those are the people we're like hearing from immediately. And we just really want to make sure everyone can play. So that tends to dominate our first couple of days after launch. That's been true of Bastion and Transistor, our last two games. So we kind of know what to expect, but it doesn't make it any less kind of intense when the moment happens.
What can the industry do about this? You hear it so often from big indies. I'd imagine working with Sony, they can help kind of play test, make sure everything's going okay on PS4. But when the PC is just such a wide market, what could the industry possibly do as a whole to help out studios like yours?
Yeah, I think I think we're like really comfortable with it. I don't know that we see it as a problem per se. I think it's just kind of the reality of it. It actually feels really good to. So even though I said it's kind of sad that we don't get like the victory lap or whatever.
Yeah.
It feels really good because we we get to just respond. We get to like, even though we're a team of 12 people, we're like personally responding to every single customer we hear from. And that feels awesome. Like the part where we can have this really direct relationship with everybody who chooses to buy one of our games. I think like a weird thing actually ends up happening where for some of these people who, like they end up having an even better experience with the game just in light of having like had a developer, reach out to them and help them, if that makes any sense. So it makes it busier for us for sure. But I think it's just kind of the reality of games being available in so many places. And that's like a wonderful aspect of games and computer gaming that's like been always one of the core differences. I love console games as well as PC games, but one of the cool differences with computer games is that they're just so kind of, you could play them in so many places and so on. So yeah, I think for developers, just knowing that there's going to be that phase immediately after a game launch where you might have to, really stay focused on monitoring how it's going and seeing what everyone is saying. That's I think just part of the reality of launching a game. And I don't know that we'd have it any other way, because it means we get to be very, very engaged with the whole thing.
Do you just keep like a Twitter search up for Pyre then? And then also just like watching a bunch of Twitch streams? Like what's the monitoring situation overall for even like outside of tech issues? Like how do you guys keep track of what everyone's talking about?
Yeah, it's not unlike what you guessed there. We're checking Twitter, we're checking Twitch, and the other big one is like our Steam forums. There's a fan Discord for Supergiant and so on. So we just have all these like. I walked over Amir, our studio director, and one of my colleagues here. I looked over at his desk yesterday, and he had his like Chrome browser open, and I'd never seen anything like it. It was just, the tabs were down to like pixel size or something. It was a row of like 60 tabs open, and I was taken aback by it.
Just a fly's vision.
Yeah, just so we're just looking everywhere where we detect there's any kind of traffic happening around people talking about the game. We want to see what all the feedback is. We want to know how we did. That's why the feedback from game critics and from players, all that stuff. We've been working on this thing for 3 years, so what happens is naturally you get pretty close to it. You know what you've made. You know what you think of it. You don't really know what other people are going to have to say, and you yourself cannot like replicate the experience of like engaging with it for the first time because you've played it so many times before.
So even with your background at GameSpot, you still can't remove yourself enough to be like, I think I have a pretty good read.
No, I mean, I think so yeah, with my background as a game critic, I think I am okay at that. I think I tend not to be super duper surprised about like critical reactions to our games, in part because it's easy for me to say that I don't get surprised. It's because my mind goes all over the place. It's because I can imagine people saying the worst, most terrible things, and I can imagine people saying really nice things and anywhere in between, because people people interpret games really differently. It's such a subjective experience, and we don't we can control, the stuff that goes into the game, but we can't control the way that someone is going to take it all in.
Yeah.
And we know that we make games in a pretty specific way. We know it's just not going to land in exactly the same way for everybody. So if anything, we're always very pleasant. We were very pleasantly surprised that Pyre was as well received thus far as it has been, because this game is capable of more than our previous games. This game is capable of providing a very different experience from one player to the next. So we're kind of we know how we play it, but we don't know how other people are going to take this thing and what their expectations are and so on. So it's been great to see that the response has been so good on the whole.
Yeah, for sure. Just talking about Supergiant's general output, I remember a while back we had Sean Vanneman from Campo Santo on the podcast, and he was saying making your first game as a new studio is hard, but making the second one is so stressful just because it allows the outside world to make a line between the games and then be like, oh, this is the type of games that this studio is focused on. And that's what I keep thinking about Supergiant, trying to think about the overall vibe between the 3 games you guys have released. I think the only word I can come up with as unifying theme is just confident. It feels so focused and so confident. How do you do it? How do you create such clean experiences for every release? There's no desperate cash grab on the studio's part. It is just confident beat by beat by beat.
I first of all, I really appreciate that. The reason I smirked is because I happen to know that I don't necessarily personally consider confidence one of our strongest virtues around here. I think along the way, during the winding course of the development of our games, we second guess ourselves a lot, but we do, I certainly don't want to diminish your point, because I really, really appreciate that that's how our games ultimately come across. I think we do try to ultimately remain focused on where we're going with a certain game, even if it makes us a little bit uncomfortable along the way, because we do try to push ourselves out of our creative comfort zone with each game we've made, and see what comes of it. When we start our projects, we have not just when we start, at no point in development do we have a design document or anything. We just kind of build our games in this very organic fashion, just piece by piece, just playing it, trying to listen to what feels lacking about it, add that, remove this, until we finally start to get a sense that, okay, this thing is winding down. This is pretty much complete for what it is. And
there's no key words. There's no whiteboard in the studio that has some key phrases on it or anything like that.
Not like we do. We're very we come up with those kind of key phrases when it comes to the tone of the experience. Tone is something that we talk about a lot early on, where first of all we do just kind of exploration, or we talk about it in kind of a loosey-goosey fashion of what kind of tone are we interested in. And then we start to refine it more sharply once we start actually building stuff around it. Like Darren, our composer, will start to make music in pursuit of a certain tone, or Jen, our art director, will start to create kind of mood paintings or something like that. And we'll look at that, we'll kind of stare at it and be like, that's not quite there. We'll start to adjust it and refine it, like I said. And at a certain point, we'll come up with something where we're like, all right, that's it. That's where we want to go. Experientially, tonally, not in terms of the exact game loop or the exact balancing or something like that. Those other aspects, while crucially important to us, are the kind of are the things that we build along the way, kind of in service of the overall mood that we're trying to achieve with one of our games.
And speaking
so that's been a through line, I think, for the 3 games we've made thus far, is that kind of process.
I read an interview, or I think I heard an interview with you one time where you said something really fascinating, which was that you go in with every project with the mentality of that you're creating a sequel, that the world's already been established and you're adding on to that. Do you want to just fill in that concept a little bit?
Yeah.
How did you stumble across that framework just for mentally structuring these games? Because I think it works really well.
Thank you. Yeah, that's something, that's an approach that I personally take, from a writing and world building standpoint. I think, and yeah, that is something that I've said before. I think that it's like a technique or a thought, a mode of thought I use just to make sure it's a test to make sure that the world of your game feels sufficiently fleshed out. Because I think a fully realized world in a game is one in which you feel like there could be any number of stories. So our games have all been these like standalone projects with rather definitive conclusions, where we make these games not to have some cliffhanger ending or to set up a trilogy or whatever, but almost from an opposite point of view of like, hey, maybe this is going to be the last game we ever make. Let's make sure this feels really solid for what it is. But at the same time, part of doing that means building out a world that does feel fully realized, so that at the end of that experience, you could also imagine other stories being there. So part of that approach of like, write it almost as though it's a sequel is that it's suggesting that there has to be like a lot of kind of rich backstory there to draw upon, where you could have just as soon made a game based on all the backstory stuff, and that that could have been really cool too.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and you guys do such a brilliant thing with Pyre of having like the keywords that you can Destiny cursor your way over and then hover over and it'll tell you more info, and that just makes it so that in theory nobody's going to be lost, even if it's a huge backstory that's implied or a larger world implied.
Yeah, with the particularly with the big cast of characters in this game, it's a lot of characters with a lot of different names and stuff, and the idea to have these like keywords, these tooltips essentially throughout the game, while a simple idea on the face of it, was really core to how we approach the written narrative, so that at any given point, we don't have to just have characters giving really awkward exposition. Like if they refer to a place, like if I'm talking to you, I don't say, I'm talking to you from San Francisco, the city in California. It's the Golden Gate Bridge is a famous landmark around here. It's very beautiful today, or whatever. This
right.
And sometimes you play games where that kind of dialogue can feel very forced because they're having to like establish the scene. But with us, it's like when the characters just refer to a place called the Downside. Well, everybody in that world knows exactly what the Downside is. And the tooltip is just there kind of for your own reference, because even you as a character in this world would have access to this information. And then I think we play with that technique as well. So for me, it was just really fun as like an interactive writing exercise, because we want to deliver narrative in means that are unique to games. And for us, it was like a playful way of using text and words where it felt more interactive.
Yeah, it's like a clean way to integrate a wiki within your game itself.
Yeah.
It's really smart.
Thanks.
Just talking about the way your studio is structured and the way you guys make games, are there studios that you guys specifically look up to when it comes to, I don't know, game development or just general output? Which ones do you really talk about a lot internally?
Yeah, I mean, that's a long list for me personally of studios like past and present. I think it depends on how you look at it. I think from like a organization standpoint, I don't know, we're kind of our own thing. We're not unique in that there are plenty of studios that are about our size. We're 12 people, and it's just kind of a flat. When you're 12 people, you don't have like a big chain of command. It's just like everybody plays a very vital part in what you do. And if someone's out sick or something, well, that's a pretty big percentage of your team right there.
Yeah.
So everybody's that makes it really fun, and puts a lot of responsibility on everyone also, because everybody plays a big part in the outcome of our games. But as far as like studios that inspire us, I mean, for me, that's going to vary from person to person. But for me personally, there was a studio when I was growing up called Origin Systems that created games called Ultima, which are these classic role-playing games. I think every Western RPG, your Elder Scrolls and your Dragon Age, they owe tremendously to the Ultima series. They're like the prototypical open world RPG.
I appreciate you giving the exposition approach to explaining Ultima and Origin for our audience.
I don't know that people know Ultima that well anymore, honestly. And they made a game series called Wing Commander also. Anyway, Origin's slogan was "We create worlds," and that was like super inspiring to me. They made these amazing games that'll stay with me forever. But I, in more like Blizzard has always been a studio I really, really looked up to. They've made it. So there's like the obvious ones, right?
Yeah,
like the Valve and the Naughty Dog and so on. They just the studios that make just the absolute best games from like a craft standpoint. And then there have been a ton of like smaller independent studios also. Cappy, the guys who make they're working on Below, and they made Sorcery. Clay that makes Oxygen Not Included and stuff like that. These studios that are smaller in size but have belted out these amazing games over time. And we're in Campo Santo these days. It's so many. The really cool thing is like Supergiant's been around a while now. We formed in 2009, but it was amazing. Like in the first couple of years that a lot of these studios, like that, we got a chance to meet so many of the people who we looked up to so much, and now they consider us, their peers or whatever. And so I think inwardly we're still very like giddy to get to know some of these people. Certainly for me, where I come from this background of writing about games, where I just admire game developers so much. I don't know how anybody does what they do, despite having worked in games in game development for 10 years now. So,
well, when you talk about like the expertly crafted game studios, as far as their output, what have you learned specifically about how they maintain that quality output, which I think you guys are also in that vein of hasn't been a misstep yet? Is it just a matter of setting the bar high early with the initial release, and then everyone can just look back and say, well, we have to do better than that. Let's keep it up.
That's a really tough question. I think if anything, we've approached it almost oppositely to that, which is weird to say. Like we've tried desperately to avoid like a trajectory where we have to feel like where we feel a burden to make like a better game every time. Because the situation is, like, we haven't grown as a team since Transistor. We don't want to grow. We want to stay small because it's core to how we operate. And we've done like the best we could. We put in our best effort with Bastion, with Transistor, and now with Pyre. So if we put in our best effort, it stands to reason maybe you'll get better in some ways, but you're not going to get like that much better if you've done your absolute best, in my opinion. That may be sort of cynical. So I think we've endeavored to make games that just feel very different, especially like because we hear from people who are like, Bastion is my all-time favorite game, Transistor is my all-time favorite game. We can't tell that person, well, hey, guess what? We've got a game that's even better than your favorite game that you got like tattooed on your arm. Like, we're not going to make a better game for that person because Bastion or Transistor spoke to that person so deeply, wherever they were in life at that point. Our best chance is to make something where they play it and they go, you know what? That was pretty good too. And hopefully for a new set of people, it'll be like the best game we've ever made. But so we just want to make games that are like on the level with everything we've done, that feel different, that feel fresh and surprising. But it's up to other people to decide, which one is the best and so on. That's just not how we approach it at all. Because if we're like proud of the games we make, then we're not just going to turn around and say like, this one's going to be even better than that piece of junk we made 3 years ago. I don't like that kind of pattern. I think it feels like it gets people into a bad spiral where you just it's hard enough to make one of these things at all, much less to just try to constantly outdo yourself.
Well, if you're trying to match previous quality examples, like how do you think the team grew with this game? What was the biggest learning curve throughout the process of making Pyre?
I mean, it was such a new game for us. Man, I think what was really different about this one is that we just kind of like, we've tried to do this with all our games to a certain extent, but especially with this one, we just let everybody like run forward doing the stuff that they cared the most about. With Transistor, it was like a more focused experience, like set during kind of a shorter time period. It all had to fit together in a really kind of discrete way to be convincing as like a single space and a single story taking place over a short space of time. Whereas with Pyre, it's this more like sprawling journey and a world that could support any number of different kind of strange things happening in it. So we just kind of let everyone run wild as much as possible, and then create a world and a context in which all of that stuff could still make sense and still feel like part of a greater whole. So I think like everybody, it turned into our biggest game ever, like by a significant margin, and we definitely learned a lot from making it. But what we made is so specific, I think, that like again, the specific knowledge that we gained is like unique to making Pyre. Like if we, depending on what, if anything, we go on to do next, it's hard for me to say how much of that would carry forward just due to the kind of proprietary nature of each of our projects.
Yeah, for sure. And thinking about, I mean, with such a broad game, then what don't we appreciate about the process? What's more difficult? What's tough to convey to the outside world? Like you don't understand how tough it is to get it through cert, to rein in the freedom.
Yeah. Man, I think this stuff is hard, but it's the best job in the world. So I'm like super reluctant to. It's easy to complain about like the parts of it that aren't fun. A lot of it is there's just a lot of work that goes into it, right? Like when it's a small, you try to push yourself, you try to make the best thing you can, and you're trying to like manage that while keeping sort of a marathon pace to it, because it's 3 years. Like if you just work your absolute hardest, you're going to burn out after a couple of weeks, and it's like, guess what? You're nowhere near the finish line. So we have experience around actually finishing these things, but I personally find, it kind of doesn't get any easier from the point of view of like, if you're pushing yourself creatively and you're making the best game you can, then if you find yourself going like, man, this is getting easier, then like maybe you're not doing those other things. So I think a lot of the challenges, even though our team has like so much experience working together, it's been the same team that we've been working together for years. There's still like when things get really busy, communicating effectively gets that much harder because everyone is heads down just trying to do their own stuff, and people's patience can start to wear thin and stuff. It gets more stressful at the end. I think that's all like kind of normal standard stuff. We know how to like intellectually or whatever, we know exactly how to work around that. It's like, well, you need to, pace yourself. You need to give yourself enough time in the schedule and so on. Like we know all those things, and we do them as best we can, but you still try to push yourself, and you still get into situations where that's just kind of the space you're in, and you don't know when inspiration's going to strike or whatever. You don't know when you're doing your best work.
Yeah.
And you just kind of have to push through those low points and try to always like maintain good judgment around what's working well and what's not, and just be super honest about the process, and like confront any issues or challenges you run into, hopefully as soon as possible. And like, not, if you start feeling bad about something as part of a team, don't let that fester, just confront it as soon as possible. Those kinds of things, like even if you know those things, it's still hard to do. And especially at the end of the process, like where we're at right now, you look back on it and you wonder what you could have done. You naturally wonder what you could have done better, but you can't like beat yourself up too much if you feel deep down that you did your best, and I feel that we did. So
right
it's definitely a period of a lot of reflection, especially with all the feedback and stuff pouring in. So it's an interesting time for sure.
Well, hey, speaking of a period of reflection, I understand you're so busy with Pyre, but how often do you think back on the GameSpot days? Do you ever think back on those? Oh, you do quite a bit?
Yeah, pretty often, I would say, yeah.
Do you ever think?
I still remember certainly all the games and stuff. Like a lot of games like stick with me for a long time.
Just games that you reviewed and whatnot?
Yeah, or games I didn't as well. Yeah, games I played. Yeah, I was at GameSpot for 10 years, so it's a big chunk of my life. It's natural, I think, for me to think about those days, especially since now it's 10 plus. This year was 10 years since I left. So now I get to be like more nostalgic about it or whatever, because GameSpot was really hard work too. I think you yourself can certainly working in the gaming press I felt very good preparation for game development because there's just never a downtime. That part is actually better working on a game because in between projects at least you can hopefully take a little breather. Whereas at GameSpot it was just relentless.
They never stopped coming.
But you were saying?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, do you ever look back on this? Is there something you wish you did more of while you're at GameSpot? Something you wish you knew? Something you wish you emphasized more?
That's a really interesting question. I think I took my work really seriously. There were moments, but I was also responsible. Like I was like a manager of a team, right? And I think like as a human being, like as like a friend to these people I worked with for years, I think there were probably many times when I was too lacking in empathy for them, where I was just like so focused on the work that I like I said, I probably, I think when you look back, it's more important to be a good friend to someone when it's someone you've known for a long time than just like, you're not going to remember, the work you did in February in 2005 or whatever. That's just, the work all becomes a blur over time, but the friendships can last you forever. And I don't know. That's my own beating myself up about it. I'm not sure if that necessarily like reflects the point of view of people I worked with, but there were times when I caught myself and was like, man, I don't know. I think I let the stress of that job probably get to me in a specific way of like, I was just so kind of hell bent on just us trying to do well,
Yeah, it's interesting. But, I mean, that ties into it. I mean, I was going to ask just like what has proven to stand the test of time, but I mean, turns out friendship and love stands the test of time above all games coverage.
Well, in life for sure, right? Because you don't, especially like whether you're in game development or in the gaming press, it's like your relationships are the things. Your relationships with other people around you are the most important. That's the most important thing you got, I think, just no matter where you are. Because if you just walk all over people, like, yeah, you might get ahead in the short run, but man, people are not going to they're not going to want to work with you again or whatever, or any number of things. It's so important to just be decent to those around you, because you never know who's going to be like I could give you a specific example. Like the guy Amir Ajami, a former colleague of mine from the GameSpot days, he reported to me at GameSpot. I was like his senior editor, but when I went to work at Electronic Arts as my first game development job, I ended up reporting to him. And it's great because Amir Ajami is he's a dear friend of mine now and has been for many years now. Boy, it's a good thing that we had a good relationship, because that might have been real awkward if it were some other way, right? Like you never know how the tables are going to turn. And once you've been around long enough, it's like you see certain people like get ahead and like, man. Or I know people who were like interns or something at GameSpot. They're like way past me now. They've done like amazing things. So it's like, man, it's good that I had a good relationship. It's not anyone. They're not people I necessarily keep up with still, but I'm glad that we had a good relationship and stuff. Well, so the interest, if we do cross paths again.
Yeah, in the interest of being a decent person and crossing paths again, I'd like to apologize for sending you a email when your Final Fantasy 12 review went live. Before I had played the game, I was one of those heads who sent you an email 9.0, little low, Greg, little low.
Oh, wow. You were one of those. I thought 9.0 from GameSpot was low.
I'm sorry.
That's awesome. Thank you for coming clean. I think it's funny. A lot of people, it's cool that remake just came out, because now I think people are more like okay with the idea that game was really polarizing back then. A lot of people actually really hated it.
Yeah, it's fun to see the new crowd like look back on it in the light of Final Fantasy since then and being like, actually, yeah, pretty cool. This is more classic Final Fantasy than I remembered. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny though with the reviews. I mean, even though 9.0 is like an astronomical, I certainly remember with Grand Theft Auto games and Final Fantasy games, it's like anything less than perfection. could make people really upset, which was always like a sad part of reviewing games, because it was never about trying to make anybody feel bad or like dampen people's excitement for something.
course
It's
not.
just trying to reflect our own, just trying to evaluate what the hell we just played.
Yeah, for sure.
But it definitely has that effect on people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a unfortunate side effect of criticism, that it could really influence one's own thinking, and is a game you're like incredibly excited about, it could suck the wind out of your sails.
And it doesn't need to. You'll probably still end up loving the game if you're going in that excited, and it's a 9 or above or below even. You're probably still really going to love it. So I'm curious, with your time at EA, you worked in the RTS genre for a while with Command & Conquer. Do you still have love for that genre? Do you still feel like there's room in the industry for a big indie push in the RTS genre, or is it just everything's going to be a MOBA, end of the day, that's it?
No, hell yeah. I think RTS is like, oh man, it's like ripe for the taking. In fact, if you look at, like, it's actually like, it blows my mind that it's so underexplored in a way. It's like, I mean, especially having worked on Command & Conquer to me is one of those franchises where it's like, dude, Command & Conquer, man, this is like evergreen. You just have to do this right, and people will go for it. In my opinion, I love Command & Conquer. I will always love it. I love StarCraft. I love Warcraft. I'll always go for those games and stuff like it. But even if you check like Steam today, I think it's like Total War, there's RTS games that are like routinely in the top 10 on Steam. They're just like from slightly smaller studios, but I think people making real-time strategy games are like cleaning up, because there's so few games like that these days.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite games of last year is actually a mobile game called Clash Royale,
of course,
which is this like crazy. It's basically a real-time strategy game, like super distilled down. But I thought that game, I had to like quit that game cold turkey because it was so addictive.
Yeah.
But I thought it was like a genius design as like as a distillation of a lot of the really like essential pleasures and interactions of real-time strategy. And a bunch of us at Supergiant played it like for many, many months. So that game was, I thought, was awesome. There's a game called Tooth and Tail coming out in just a couple of weeks that looks really cool. That's also like focused on just kind of taking what is innately exciting about real-time strategy and like stripping away a lot of the bloat that can happen to any game genre just over time. People just kind of add features to stuff, and they can like push away newer players once a certain style of game gets too complicated. But
that's like Clash Royale. I'm still waiting for a huge indie or just an indie studio to really nail a good heartfelt RTS. I feel like Grey Goo was kind of getting there a little bit, but I feel like God, there's got to be that market out there.
Tooth and Tail, I think, is the next one going up to bat real soon. Now we'll see how it turns out.
Definitely check it out. So how do you refill the tank after Pyre's shipped? What's the plan?
I don't know. That's one. There's the honest. We do not. One of the nice things about being small is we don't have to plan too far ahead, and we know not to over plan. We put everything into we put everything into one of our new games, and everything into the launch and supporting the launch. And then we kind of see what happens from there. People ask us like, do you know what game you're going to make next? Like, no idea. Like, it's a super taboo. It's taboo even to have like a conversation about it before the dust has settled on the game that we're working on, because it honestly just doesn't. It's a couple of things. One is that every new game we make in some ways is like even if just subconsciously, is like a reaction to the last game we made, even just from the experience of working on it, whether directly or indirectly. And the other part is like, it matters so much what the response is, how we're feeling about it, all those things. But the simpler answer to like, how do we refill the tank? We take a break, right? We have to, once the dust does start to settle on the game launch and everything's running smooth and we're not trying to get a game out the door, we can take some time and reflect and change the scenery, think things through, and come back recharged and start to plan in earnest and figure out where we are, where we want to be, all that kind of stuff. So that's the more that's the more, I guess, official answer. So that's the more real answer. But yeah, for the moment, we're just still in that like reacting, a very reactive mode. But
Yeah.
that mode where we'll get to take a little breather, that shouldn't be too long from now. I think it's really nice to have the game out there at long last.
Well, yeah. Well, good. Congratulations on the game's launch,
Thank
and go get some rest. Have the studio go home for a while. Go on vacation, man.
Yeah, pretty soon now.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good to hear. But yeah, congrats again. It seems like people are really enjoying it. And thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday, and we'll have a new episode waiting for you. Bye, everybody.